The following video contains content some viewers might find disturbing. The views and opinions expressed here are not facts and are nothing more than entertainment. The views and opinions are not facts and do not represent the views and opinions of Xirtus or our channel, and do not necessarily represent or reflect the views of the guests, YouTube, Google, mainstream media, society, or civilization at large, or anybody. Viewer discretion is advised.
Mixing it up. Okay, so I started this earlier this way. I told this story earlier, but I'm gonna tell it again because that was funny. Let me make sure I cover anything important. So my parents got this message in the mail, and it looked like an envelope from AT&T, right? And it's like pretty realistic, but there's no like message there, right? The message is here. Just again checking it, and it says, here's your account, and it's going to be closed if you don't send $80 right away to this AT&T, which is P.O. Box, Carroll Springs, Illinois. Which let's go to Carroll Springs, Illinois. So Carroll Springs, Illinois is.
Let's show up at their house.
This is their house. Yeah, guys, if you're in Illinois and you want to check this out, let's type in Carroll Springs, Illinois. The thing is, Carroll Springs, Illinois is this
If you're in Illinois and you're interested in targeted assassination,
Well, I mean, it's not. It's some places are kind
that's
of
a pretty nice house, man. That's that fake AT&T check money.
Oh, this is wrong. This is wrong.
Oh, okay.
Carroll Springs, Illinois. Here, let's try that again. That's funny. Here you go. It looks more like Detroit, like after the fire kind of a thing. It's like,
yeah,
it's not that bad, but you get the idea. These guys, I bet you it's probably not them. But what I think is, if you want to find out who's at P.O. Box 5025, Carroll Springs, Illinois, who's pretending to be AT&T and swindle old people out of money, that'd be cool. So, but this is what's going on to so many people, and I think it's like, I don't know. I kind of wanted to bring that up.
And the middle-aged people like me, I get texts all the time where it's like from banks I don't even use, like Bank of America, your account will be closed.
I get texts like that all the time. It's like, this is crazy. Like, you ordered this thing, and it's funny. It's plausible. Like, did I get drunk and order a bunch of stamps?
I changed my phone number and right away started getting spam. Like they just spam every number in the book, or just every combination of 7-digit numbers in the area.
My parents are like, you need to get a phone in your room. I'm like, what? Like, so you can answer the house phone? I'm like, no, I'm never going to answer the house phone. I check for messages. I think you should unplug all the house phones and wait for messages, because they get calls at 6 o'clock in the morning from spam telemarketers, like random at all the time. Cause it's just from China on these robots set up with Google VoIP. And then it just digitally sends through.
Bring on the solar flare or the EMP or whatever.
It's pretty crazy, but yeah, I mean,
let's go back to Dungeons and Dragons. Do you think if we got rid of all the technology and electricity, it would free up the magic and we'd have like magic again?
Ironically, my solution to this is get everything digital, because if it's all digital, I can see it. And if it's not a checkbook, it's not physical. Like, who's doing this? Like, they're sending physicals to PO boxes. That's not real. Like, unless it's me with my PO box, I'm asking you to send me a cassette tape mixtape to PO Box 890, SoCal, California 95073. Send me as many mixtapes as you have. Yeah. No, if you have mixtapes, I would love them, but it would probably. I get it. Cassette tapes are worth more and more money. I made so many cassette tapes this week, dude. I'm so good at cassette tapes now. I'm really good at it.
Buy them.
Oh my God, all over the place. It's such a chore. But I also found some ones I won't erase that I got. These are some
oh, there you go.
Michael Jackson History Part 1 and 2. That's really good. These are the Fujifilm DR1s. I found a pack, some never used tapes. I want to start finding more Type 2s and Type 4s, but Type 1s are the ones you can get pretty cheap because no one cares about.
Maxell is a good one. Maxell is the one in the ad where the guy's sitting in his chair getting blown back by the music like this. You're like,
yeah. That's how I feel in this room when I sit here, because I've got this cassette tape player right here, and there's like that speaker is about taller than the guitar. So if I'm literally, that is my life. I just do that, So it's kind of nice without the backrest, so I can just lie back, which is cool. That chair doesn't let you fall. There's a story that Seth brought up, actually, that is the coolest story of the week. I think this wins. Good job, Seth.
Cool for me.
Mexico bans chemtrails. Geoengineering, after American startup firm tried to block out sun with chemtrails in Baja California, Big Sur. So you see, we've always talked about geoengineering and chemtrails and companies saying that they're going to out in public what they're doing. Here it is happening. So
this is actually a 2 weeks old story, but the real story is that there's been no chemtrails in Southern California. I can't verify other areas, but no chemtrails for 2 straight weeks.
Well, I'm in Southern California too. I haven't. Well, it's been raining a lot these days, right?
But it hasn't rained for 2 weeks.
But remember the last huge downpour, the cyclone, whatever you call it, the cyclone bomb. That after that one. There was like one day that was
the 28th. That was the 28th. They sprayed massive chemtrails.
That was crazy.
Yeah, that was on the 28th. Articles from the 26th, and since the 28th, it's been 2 weeks exactly today, and there's been no chemtrails, and I've never seen that since the implementation of chemtrails. So I think maybe something exciting is happening, or they feel pressure to pause. But isn't it amazing that an American startup company is just like, let's go spray some foreign countries' air? Like they're.
I mean. What's the word? What does amazing mean again? It's like I think that's almost like
overused.
Prognostic. That's like the kind of word that we would say is like unbelievable or incredible or something like dreadful. Okay, if it just means dreadful, then sure. Yes, it is dreadful. I don't know. It seems kind of, the thing is, it's what we do all the time, though. The idea of it's a maze, dazed, bewildering. It's not bewildering, because where else are you going to do it? You're not going to do it in the United States. You do it in Canada. You do it on the coast, and then you just
Chemtrails are the most in-your-face depressing phenomenon, because like you'll wake up and you'll look out your window, you're like, oh, it's sunny, it's gonna be a nice sunny day, and you walk out the front door, and on the other side of the house is a massive chemtrail going across the sky. You're like, it won't be a sunny day, it'll be hazy with headaches and depression. So it's like
weird how they're okay to talk about your car. You're like, hey, you need to get your car smog, blah 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 blah.
But by the way, there's no such thing as chemtrails, except that now we have an American firm doing it. Does anyone know the name of this firm? And the Mexican government acknowledges it. And I mean, so it's
how reliable is this website? I mean, what is it called? What is this website called?
The Verge. The Verge is very reliable. There's actually lots of people talking about it.
Right? Yeah, it's everywhere.
Yeah, it's not. It's no question that it happened. Eisman says make sunsets, Geoengineering. Their company's called Make Sunsets. That's adorable. What a cute name for a company.
That's the website.
That's the aerosol company. That's the aerosol company?
Make
How
Sunsets.
did they track it down? Because nobody could ever successfully track down these companies. How did they track these companies down? Because they usually like the military and the top secret.
Right. Well, obviously the Mexican. Well, it probably is a contractor. Like Make Sunsets is probably like an intelligence contractor cutout. But the Mexican government must have made a press statement. I would imagine.
Well, you know what? This is a funny thing about Mexico, because I lived down there. I was there for 5 years. I got married down there. My wife is Mexican, and I mean, sure, I see chemtrail many times as well, but that country is kind of like a borderline, like a feral. There's
it looks like as soon as they say experimentation with solar geoengineering will not be allowed in Mexico, then it says Summernaut and Conocit or something like that will carry out actions in accordance. So there will still be this Latino Halliburton equivalent. It seems like it's going to allow for some things to happen, but they're not going to allow for these Western companies that they're not in charge of. But the Convention of Biological Diversity of the United Nations organization, of which Mexico is a part, established in 2010, is a moratorium that is still enforced against the deployment of geoengineering. So the question there is, are they saying that the United Nations is going to try to stop
the United Nations? If you look
aren't they the ones who do it?
Yes, if you look up UN Operation Solar Shield or Initiative Solar Shield, it's called Solar Shield. They started it in the 80s, at least the planning committee for it, unless this is fake news. It's the whole thing is a UN operation, the chemtrailing and reflecting the sun back, like in The Simpsons.
And you know what, Andreas, can you look up the U.S. Army manual? I posted it in Synchronous many times. It's U.S. Army manual. What's it called? The hologram. Okay, hologram, and then strontium. The chemical strontium, barium.
Barium salt.
Is that the? Okay.
Yeah, that's within chemtrails. It's strontium, barium, and aluminum.
You can download. I guess there's no more.
Yeah, the mass of it is coal ash. They buy the coal ash from the coal industry, and that's like that's what most of it is. That's what it's dispersed in, is superfine coal ash. And then when you see the trails where it has like a key effect, like the line, you can see little lines coming out of the line. That's like that's like metals separating out by weight. And when you see it with polarized glasses, you can see like rainbow reflections in there, like oils and stuff. So definitely not condensation. There's no oils or condensation.
But this is what I'm trying to say is that. This is, Project Bluebeam. You heard of Project Bluebeam, right?
I've heard of it. I personally don't believe in it.
Yeah. Okay.
You don't think there's something like Project Bluebeam, and the Project Bluebeam is kind of the public understanding of what really was going on, or something, or what?
I think there's a whole bunch of fake projects just to create like a haystack that you can't find the needle in. That's like when you look at the DARPA patents, and they have like thousands of crazy patents. I think like 99%
that's totally true. When you look at the Star Wars Strategic Defense Initiative, a lot of the project was just to freak out the Soviets and to make them believe they had technology they hadn't mastered yet. So there's definitely room for that. But go ahead, Teddy. Sorry.
Okay, I don't want you guys to just throw the baby out with the bathwater. But what I'm trying to say is that you just look at a manual. That is actually a real manual, straight from the government website.
For Bluebeam?
So it's basically saying that it can create holographic effect in midair. Yeah. So and that's the technology. Look at the date. It's 1998, I believe, right?
Yeah.
If you look at
and they did have this. I know that's a fact that you could use laser projectors using different kinds of gases, and
and some people say that the chemtrails are meant to be like a movie screen to project because like you can't just project them in thin, clear air. It needs to be on a smoke screen or something, right?
Or also to hide whatever's like whatever actual crafts. Like
I want to mention something about something that wasn't hidden that I saw too, because I saw something pretty crazy.
What do you see?
I'll bring it up later. Let's finish this.
Okay, but I'm just trying to say that recently there's been a lot of weird phenomenon, like people are seeing two suns, like in China, and I forgot which other countries, and they're also seeing the sun appearing in front of a cloud. You know, so there's a lot of strange things that I mean, we're not talking about UFO or anything particular, but just some weird anomalies where it's like, wait a second, why is this? You know, there's something that's not right. The moon's not appearing in the right location.
That's true.
And so it just made people question: are we seeing the real sky right now? So
I know, right? A lot of people, some astronomers who like basically have decided they don't feel like we're looking at the real sky anymore. That the sky has changed since the 70s or 60s. Like we're looking at a completely different thing. And it's interesting when you look at the sky. The story we're told anyway about satellite map around Earth, or like number of satellites around the Earth. Like this, the story is supposed to be that there's just so many satellites that it'd be almost impossible to see beyond them, right? There's just supposed to be just
so like
crazy.
And that's like that would be like Mysterio's like little drone satellites to create the holograms, like they surrounded the whole Earth in like hologram drones. Is that that's the assertion? Or
I mean, just that the sky's blacked out or blocked out to some degree, because for the most part, you can't see past these things, and they can constantly go right above you, and they're large enough that they block out something that's at a further distance.
I never see them. I mean,
right, which is crazy. This is supposed to be I mean, well, you can look for this. Can
you catch them in telescopes if you know where they're at, or
Skynet? What's it called?
What's be able to see the
ISS? You can see a light going across the sky like once a year or something. Yeah.
Or the ISS, right? The space station. You used to be able to see them. I don't know. It's just hard to track these days.
You can see the Skylink satellites train in the sky at night if you're in the right place. Like in the Midwest, it's pretty easy to see this. In the Midwest, I see it all the time every night.
China wants to shoot these down. China is definitely feeling threatened. The military does not like the start. These things are definitely like it's a surveillance tool. You know, it's they can see everything above China.
It's just crazy though. If there's this many satellites, there's gonna be more of them. They're talking about launching more. I mean,
what about really China's fake sun? Do you guys know anything about China's fake sun project?
Oh, the what is it called?
The fake moon. I've seen
the fusion. Yeah, that thing. It worked like last month or 2 months ago. And also, it's not just China. London has one too. It seems like everybody has one.
China is launching a bunch of these fake moons, though, right?
To light up like whole cities at night, so you don't need street lights.
They want 27 of them or something. Yeah. So
I thought you were talking about the fusion.
I am. That's what I was talking about. I forgot about the fake moons, but yeah, China has actually a fake. I don't know if it's real or not. Like, I can't talk to anyone in China, but it seems like so fake. But apparently, they have a fake sun, and they tested it, or is it always up there, or like what's I don't know. I don't remember.
I thought it was supposed to. You're not talking about the fusion reactor that's 70 times more powerful than the sun?
No, like they're actually launching like an artificial sun. It could
you know what I think is going on? I think the sun is dying.
But let's do all these things one. Let's do all these things one at a time, because a lot of times on the show we almost talk about something really interesting, then forget. So we got the sun dying, the fake sun, the fake moon, the chemtrails.
Well, I guess one thing we should be careful with the word fake. We should use the word artificial, because that's a comfortable word for people. And I think fake. Then when I looked it up, it's going to look for things that are saying, yeah, but did they launch an artificial sun? And let's see, is it real? China just launched. China debuted. Is it real? While the video's been uploaded, narrated. Is it trying to say it's fake? China has reached video claim. Are they going to tell me it's fake or not? Misleading video seems a conflation of footage. Okay, so there could be. It's probably something they're launching satellites that are supposed to be, but maybe those satellites are supposed to be useful for something like that.
You know
Pink Trip, what do you think about fake suns? Hey, Pink Trip, ladies and gentlemen.
You.
What's up, Mark? How you doing?
You're gonna definitely see some fake suns, because it's towards the end of the Chinese New Year festival.
The
Lantern Festival is today, I think.
Let me catch up. Mark. really quickly. So we're talking about China, and so Mexico and chemtrails. So first thing is Mexico banned chemtrails. They banned geoengineering, and there hasn't been any chemtrails in Southern California in the last 2 weeks because Mexico literally banned this. Now, who's saying this? Verge and BBC Guardian, lots of people. This is actually the official government of Mexico brought this up. Next, we're talking about the Chinese have fake moons that they're launching, which is messing with reality, but also that they're in the process of launching perhaps fake suns. And people are saying on Newsweek, well, the Chinese didn't say it's fake suns. They're saying they just launched the Xinyan 1201 and 1202 satellites. But what are these 1201 and 1202 satellites if we start to look at them? Sounds to me like they might be more fancy than we realize. Maybe there's something, maybe they are. What are they launching? Right? It could very well be something. So do you think that there's...
Moreover, what's going on in the sky? A lot of people have concerns about what's going on in the sky. A lot of people, the internet is full of theories, blue beam to everything else, so that's basically what...
Right. And there's been astronomers saying the sun's
it's like God getting really high, right?
Yeah.
No, yeah. So chemtrails are supposed to be literally Bill Gates and people like that have said they want to change the energy. So the UN has studies on chemtrails saying that they can geoengineer the climate to make it more palatable across the board. There's a company that was banned first that this Mexican government had a fine called Make Sunsets. So Make Sunsets is the name of the company, and they're trying to build this. Right. So, I mean, I don't know. It's pretty crazy. But then simultaneously, you've got the Chinese are on the other side of the brick. And so the UN said it for a while. They want to control geoengineering. If China's doing it, and then, you were just bringing up culturally, Eddie, that it's the lunar and solar New Year's, right?
Yeah. Well, it's the end of the Chinese 2-week festivals is called Lantern. The Lantern Festival is the last day. And that's when they wrap up everything. So this is the day when they light up tons of lanterns, and even like in Taiwan they do the raise the lantern, the flying lanterns with that like little hot air balloons. The Chinese invented it. They put in Disney films and all that now, but you see a lot of like weird stuff in the sky. Basically, that's what I'm trying to say. You can see a lot of like, wait, is that a UFO? But it's actually a flying lantern.
Yeah, I mean, California, they used to scare the Californians with propaganda about the Japanese, and they said like,
the bombs, yeah, the lantern bomb that actually successfully,
and the Battle of Los Angeles.
It actually killed somebody, right? It actually detonated and killed somebody. A family.
So the idea is these little kids were putting together these little balloons, and then they were putting candles under them like Roald Dahl, right? And then they were floating across the sea from Japan to California. I think this is impossible, and there's no way this is true. But this was news that was done to try to get Californians to believe that
there's a great Radio Lab episode about this with all the details. I remember this.
This part though, Japanese actually producing a military balloon that was for reconnaissance that went across, that I can believe. I think that's probably more reasonable than just like the paper lanterns.
While there was no chemtrails and there's still no chemtrails for 2 straight weeks, coming on the heels of this Mexican government story, and I'm about 2 hours, maybe 3 hours away from Mexico. If you look in your Instagram DMs, Xirtus, I showed you a picture that my friend Dora Lee took, something amazing that I saw that I probably wouldn't have seen if the chemtrails were there. And anytime the moon is supposed to do something amazing, like a blood moon or something like that, we always get super chemtrails that day. That's the moon.
Up there?
No, down lower.
Oh, wow. This thing?
Yeah, that's the moon.
Whoa.
That looks really big. And people are telling me, oh, it's atmospheric distortion. I'm like, bro, it looks 10 times bigger than normal. Like, I don't know if that's a normal thing or not, but I'm 46 and I've been around and I've seen thousands of moons.
Too. I don't think I've ever seen the moon that low.
And that's Jupiter and Venus above it, dude. They were huge too. So I was like, what am I looking at? And like, how,
okay. Do you know what is actually the phenomenon today is the last day is that green comet. I forgot the number.
Oh yeah.
Look it up. I forgot the name of it.
I saw an article on that.
It's a bad omen because in China they talk about green comets. It's right. Wartime. It actually is a bad omen for war.
Why is it? What is green? What does it mean that it's a green comet? What is that?
It's a green comet that orbits around the sun every 50,000 years.
That means whatever it's made out of burns green.
Or just like
the color of it.
Or the distance and the speed that the friction is causing it to burn at that temperature.
I guess I picked the wrong time to quit smoking weed then.
You'll burn it up, man.
Green comet would mean that it's a lot hotter than like a red comet, though, right? So there's that. It's hotter.
Really? Green is hotter?
I know from Godzilla that blue and white are the hottest Godzilla breaths. So I don't know if that's true for comics.
That makes sense. If you were to do, let's see, power density, color, you can see like where power density is along the spectrum. And so once you get to ultraviolet, you're beyond green, and white hot is probably in the blue spectrum there to white.
So I'm just here to hang because half the time or 90% of the time I can't keep up with what the hell you guys are talking about. So I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try.
I'm sorry, because I'm from another show. I'm from the.
How you doing, Eddie? Nice to meet you.
He's from another universe. There's a multiverse mashup.
Trip does some pretty crazy stuff.
I'm so interested in this subject, but I don't know how to organize my thoughts or what to talk about first, or if there's any utility in just dreaming about this stuff because there's no hard information. But I'm so interested in what's.
I like it because it's like birds aren't real. True space is fake. Sky is fake. The idea that the sky has been blacked out and that we're hiding it, and that there's some other things they're putting in the sky, and then this is what Bill Gates' geoengineering plan was, and we heard about in the Matrix. They're like, by the way, it's not really 1999. This already happened, and you're living in a fake sky.
They've admitted to like spraying shit into the sky to try to like combat climate change, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
they're gonna, Operation Solar Shield.
They're gonna fuck so much shit up with this bullshit climate change. Sorry,
it's poisoning the soil. That's why vegetables don't have any nutrients in them anymore. The soil is super acidic from aluminum and barium landing in it.
Why is Bill Gates behind everything, dude?
He's just a middleman.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's not.
Didn't he just sell the vax thing, and then now he's talking crap about it?
Even 201 was him in Johns Hopkins University. That was the pandemic exercise on October 18, 2019, right? It's the same day that Wuhan, where the ground zero of the pandemic.
I think he's just like a Renfield. I think they put public faces to all this terrible stuff just so that you feel like you have a person to direct your complaints to, but they're not even like, it's like with everything Biden's doing right now. It's like, oh, you don't like how things are going? Like, talk to Biden. It's like, good luck.
He's definitely going to be the fall guy for the deep state and all the rest.
Yeah, I think Bill Gates, I don't know if you're talking about Biden or Bill Gates.
Biden, yeah.
And Epstein and Maxwell, like a lot of these people, you don't get burned if you're an elite. Like these people aren't elites. These people are like actors, middlemen, like Renfields to like the real Draculas who we don't get to interact with.
Don't get me wrong, that guy's creepy. Look at how he throws that floppy diskette.
He looks sexy without his glasses.
I'm sorry. I mean, no, we're switching subject.
He looks like he's on a lot of meth.
About the movie.
Oh yeah. Let's stick on the subject. Yeah.
Okay. Just the last thing I want to bring up about that is that the Air Force. I forget this general. He came on and talked about. I forgot his name. And he said in the year 2025, we are going to war with China, and also that is also the year 2025 that we know that China is going to the moon, right? And then the head of NASA actually said that China is a real threat. It's going to derail the plan for the moon landing. The director of NASA. So the number 3 thing is 2025 is also the year the NASA mission Artemis. It's going to be the 3rd phase. The Artemis 3 is the plan to put humans on the moon in 2025. So it feels like there's a planning to have a war on the moon. if the general said there's a war on 2025, and then we can put humans on the moon on 2025, and there's a threat from NASA NASA declared China as a threat.
Well, a lot of the predictive sci-fi novels of the 50s and 60s do deal with wars on the moon. John Heinlein's "The Moon is a Harsh Mistress" is all about that. So I mean,
I could see the like a war for the resources on the moon, but what would be the point of actually fighting the war on the moon?
Positioning. I mean, it's an amazing it's a high ground,
Well, helium-3 is the resource you're talking about. The helium-3 is extremely.
Oh, we don't know. The whole thing could be filled with potable water. We have no idea.
Jeez.
I think David Icke is right. I think the thing is hollow because they had a ping test with a rocket. Yeah. It's empty. The moon is empty.
So it's like an abandoned spaceship, an abandoned spaceship or something, or the Death Star.
The gray aliens are inside.
So yeah, David Icke's story is from Credo Mutwa, which is the idea that the moon started out as an inside out or hollowed out egg, according to their Zulu mythology. So it's basically a spaceship, but it is the inside crust of the earth on the outside of the ship. So if you were to build a spaceship, the best thing you would want if things are constantly hitting it, like imagine you got a car, you want a chrome bumper, right? So this is a big moon dust bumper. And if things hit it, it's safe as it's traveling through space pretty fast. And everything on the inside's pretty protected from radiation, from particles, from being hit by larger things, from any other dents. So that kind of makes sense. The other thing that's weird about the moon is it's this giant thing. It's super close to us. No other planet that we've observed has a moon this size, this close to it. Most planets our size don't have moons, according to our science. So even just following mainstream beliefs, like the moon is a weird thing that you only ever get to see one face of.
Well, if you were going to build a giant spaceship and you were building it in space, what shape would you make it?
I mean, I'd probably choose either this or the cigar. I think
I'd choose that because everything else that travels through space is that shape already. So it seems like the winning shape.
I like Oumuamua makes sense to me too, because it's like a boomerang. It gets around something and it then heats up. The radiation from it then is stored in the insulatory material, and then that is raw energy. As long as you can store that heat, you've stored fuel. Essentially, it's like a battery charge. So that could be pretty sweet as well.
I tell you this real quick is that when I was in Mexico, when I just arrived, it was my 33rd birthday, and I saw a cigar-shaped craft in Cancun, off the shore of Cancun. Nobody else saw it. I saw it. It was my 33rd birthday. I told everybody, "Hey, look at that! What is that?" And nobody could see it. And I took a picture of it. It was a little orb. It's like I couldn't even take a picture of that craft. It's gigantic. It's golden.
Right. So you see these orbs, but they might just be like submarines. And I think that's the thing, is that you've got submarines that might jettison from this moon. If you were to build it, that's the way you would do it, right? You'd have some sort of a base, and you look at the buoy structure. That's the way that they've built a lot of their bases. And you've got these submarine geodesic structures that they've built. This is an example, but they have these like for submarine mining operations, because this is the strongest shape. So you can have this and you can sink it as deep as you need it to go, and you can bring it also back up, or you can build it underwater and then you can vacuum it out.
Is it a docking station, or is this actually?
It's a docking station for mining. Now this is probably a CGI version of it, but if you type in
like Ecodome,
sustainable underwater habitat.
Yeah, so you. These kinds of pieces of equipment they have to bring underwater, and then they use these robots. They're all connected to it. So, I mean, that's kind of what humanity would have if you were trying to deal with two places that are completely on the other side of like the veil. You got water, you've got sky. If something's in a place that you're unable to breathe in, right? That's the way you're going to connect with it. And I think that makes the most sense to have these cigar crafts. I don't know. The disc craft is also interesting, but I think that's mostly something that humans would build.
It would look a good deal like a cigar. That one looks like a cigar in the distance,
Right. Yeah.
But going back to the picture that Dora Lee got of the giant moon over Los Angeles, I don't know what kind of lensing effect makes it get like 10 times bigger like that, like huge. But if the moon was not a solid object with gravitational effect, like if it was like plasma or just like a light or something we don't know the name for, it could get as close to the Earth as it wanted. So what do you guys think? You guys are all of the belief that the moon is a solid object, because based on like some of the Crow 7.7 telescope videos he took, and projection or plasma or something like that. And also I've seen videos of people I find reputable enough, like where you can see a star through the moon when it's like a half moon, and you can see like Venus behind it. You can see it through the moon.
It's translucent.
They say that's some other kind of boomerang telescopic effect or something. Like, I don't know. I mean, to me, if I just had to guess, I would guess that the moon is, some sort of a light and not something you can go land on.
Or maybe when there's no sun, the light kind of wraps around the moon if it's dark. So you're seeing the light kind of bend around the moon. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, so that seems kind of funny to me also, because in what circumstance does anything work that way, where like the light, wraps around an object? I mean, and it's also interesting, the idea that the sun and the moon are supposed to be these very distant, very different things,
but they're also to be the exact same shape and size in our sky.
Yeah, it seems very strange that our science is telling us that basically our empiricism is lying to us. I mean, that is,
or that we're in a simulation. I mean, if you're going to design a simulation, you'd make things, maybe you would just be like, everything's 180 times bigger, 180 times closer, just make it easier or something. But the odds are against it, being that they look the exact same size. Like when they eclipse, it like lines up perfectly. I mean, what are the odds of that?
The odds are just too weird. I mean, to be honest, I actually, because I you know, the SRI, you know, Stanford Research Institute, back in the 60s, 70s, they did a lot of the remote viewing tests with what's his name? Who's that most famous remote viewer?
Russell Targ. Russell Targ.
No, Russell Targ is not so well known. I mean, it's Ed Dame's teacher. What's his name? Ingo Swann.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh,
Ingo
man.
Swann, he was testing a subject.
Shout out to Mr. Douglas right now, who is not feeling super well, and hopefully he'll be here next time. But he's been working, and he's got all these recordings of Ingo Swann's Power of One series, and he's in the process of officially doing the audio recordings of Ingo Swann for Ingo Swann's family to put out there. So pretty exciting stuff, actually.
I would love to hear that.
Yeah.
So just real quick, I believe Ingo Swann was he was the head of that project at the time, but they were tracking one subject. Not sure if he's a Soviet spy or somebody. There's a subject of interest. They were tracking him, and somehow he got killed. I think he was shot or whatever happened. So when that happened, they said keep tracking. So they're basically tracking a dead person, and basically the soul left the body. They were tracking his soul, and they tracked the soul. The soul was flying towards the moon, and then so when they keep tracking, I might have gotten some details wrong, but that was a basic idea. They were tracking his out of a body entity, well, tracking his soul all the way to the moon. When it was almost approaching it, suddenly there's a huge blast, like intolerable, very loud warning saying, you cannot come here. Don't come close anymore. Don't basically say abandon your mission. Don't follow him anymore. So basically, it got so intolerable. Because there was like a whole team, right? There's like 4 or 5 of these remote viewers were tracking him, and suddenly they have to abandon him because their heads were about to explode. So it's
we're talking about, Mark. Have you seen that movie Men Who Stare at Goats? Do you know about the military put all kinds of money into remote viewing and that stuff? Right.
Yeah, the first battalion. Yeah.
Yeah.
The head of the project, right? General Stubblebine, right? Stubblebine. Well, there's a documentary, right? The documentary was by Ron Johnson. Not Ron Johnson. John Ronson, the guy who followed Alex Jones to the.
Right. He set that whole thing up. He was the concierge that got Alex Jones in there.
I think he's MI6.
He's probably MI5, MI6.
Yeah.
His books are great, though. I've read all of his books; they're all amazing.
He's funny as hell. I mean, I love him. I mean, he's a very creative writer, but I definitely feel like he's the British intelligence.
So, I mean, do you think, though? I want to ask Mark. Do you think that the fact that the CIA were taking tons of cocaine and taking tons of money, and they were working on remote viewing, where does that leave you? Like, do you just think, oh, hey, it was the 70s and it was crazy? Or does this make you kind of think, oh, okay, that makes sense. That's maybe why I've been conditioned to think that this stuff is crazy and I should laugh at it instead of looking into it because they're doing it themselves and they've licensed it for secret agents only. Which direction?
I don't know, man. I mean, from my understanding, there were some unique situations where they were able to use remote viewing to get intelligence on situations that ended up being pretty accurate. But then there were some situations where it was not accurate. So who knows, man?
Yeah. So do you think that they're just telling you that it's not accurate so that you don't look into things like SciTech, or like, again, we were saying Russell Targ earlier, or all of these groups, like at the end of the Men Who Stare at Goats, they all have private companies that the government hires, right?
Yeah. I don't know, man. I can't say that remote viewings for sure, but who knows?
But you know that the government are using it even to this day because that's what the movie's about.
Well, they spend $100,000 on a hammer, so you never know what they're spending the money on. Really,
but you know that at the end of the movie, he goes to Afghanistan and he finds that their company is there working in Afghanistan, right?
No, I'm predisposed to believe it's true. And like I was saying at the beginning of the show, I think that we're bombarded with electrical interference that really limits our potential as human beings and what our true powers are. Like, that's what I was saying. If we were to have a solar flare or like an EMP, mass EMP event or something like that, I do think like magic would return to this world. I think that, human beings are severely stunted by our brains are, electric signals going through a receiver. So it's like we're bombarded with radiation and microwaves and every kind of ELFs and everything. It just makes it really hard to use your brain, basically.
Did you guys ever read about Edgar Cayce?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's like he would go into like a trance-like state, and like he would like almost like remote viewing in a way.
It pretty much is, yeah.
Yeah. So and then he would go into like people's bodies and be like entering the lymphatic system, and that guy's pretty crazy. Like my dad is obsessed with Edgar Cayce. That's how I know so much about him. And his medical readings when he was like basically had no like real teaching in medicine, but he was so accurate with his medical readings that a lot of the stuff he was, from my understanding, like there's a lot of doctors that ended up like adopting some of his shit from the readings he had.
It's
I still follow a lot of his advice when it comes to health.
Do you follow his thing on six-fingered giants and the supernatural creation of Atlantis?
Yeah, there's some stuff that I think he was wrong about when he started trying to like predict the future. But his medical stuff was pretty crazy how accurate, and like he helped a lot of people with a lot of problems.
I mean just to think that he was a pastor, he does not believe in any of this. He was a Christian pastor. He just
Christians believe in a lot of wild stuff, bro.
Yeah, that's where he got the Bible. The Bible.
Angels are like in the Bible. Angels are like giant flying winged donuts with a million eyes on them and stuff.
And they have sex with women, and that's how giants happen.
Apparently, he read the Bible like an ungodly amount of times, and like his whole thing was he was accessing the Akashic records. Yeah. You guys have probably heard about the Akashic records.
And Steiner's
I think we can all we're all supposed to be able to access that stuff and all have all kinds of powers we don't have and stuff. And it's sorry,
you got to tap into it. It's a very deep kind of hypnotism that they use. Also, Dolores Canyon is another famous one that uses the same type of. I forgot the brainwave. There's several levels of hypnotism, right? I mean, I think it's. We know the alpha, beta,
theta, delta, theta. The theta state is where a lot of this stuff takes place, like astral projection and stuff like that. But specifically, like literally, you can look up studies on this. The electronic interference we're getting, the radiation and everything. People really don't enter theta state anymore. People are always in an alpha state.
He was really into reincarnation. I'd love the idea, and that's the thing. People say reincarnation is like, you can come back as a bug. But from my understanding, that's like transmutation. There's a difference between reincarnation and transmutation. But the funny thing about reincarnation is like nobody ever talks about their past life as being a slave. They're always like an Egyptian pharaoh or something.
Oh, I don't know about that, bro. In 2023,
my last life,
they're a slave.
Like my last life, I was a butler. I was like, no,
my last life, I was an old Jewish lady in New York City.
Something on the exact same topic I wanted to bring up before we move is Stanley Kubrick.
I got to hear Andreas's last life. Where'd you get that from, Andreas?
Old Jewish lady.
I used to be an old Jewish lady that lived in Bushwick, and I had these weird memories and like thoughts about this, and so when I went to New York, it was weird because I knew my way around everywhere, Bushwick, Maimonides, all this stuff, and I had these like vague memories of like taking in young, like 20 to 30, like 17 to 28-year-old people that are moving to New York City and letting them live in my apartment, and I was living alone, and I think I died of like drugs, and I used to like go hang out at like bars and have fun and stuff in my 70s, and then I died basically.
Where did you get this insight?
It's just all my life I had these like vague memories of being this little old lady in New York City and not knowing what it was or what it meant, but as time went on I was like, oh, that's where that is. And then when I got there I was like, oh, I know my way around. This is crazy.
I think the doctor, what's his name? Her name Judy, the Dr. Love, Dr. Sex, that old Jewish lady that she's like always on the news.
Dr. Ruth.
Dr. Ruth, yeah.
Oh,
that sounds like
Ruth. Dr. Ruth, but
she loves to party with young people too.
Dude, you look into her sometimes. She's a total occultist, by the way.
Yeah, I was kind
of. And her sister is Ask what's her name from the newspaper.
I think I was probably like 5 something though. That's all I'm saying. But it's okay.
Yeah, but she's groovy, man. She's funny.
No, she's red. She actually, Dr. Ruth was an assassin. And she was a sniper for the Israeli military. And if you look into it, it's actually
I know Mr. Rogers is too, but geez.
Mr. Rogers was I didn't know that. Concentration camps, etc.
I'm never going to look at you the same anymore, Andreas, after knowing about your past life. I'm always going to see the little Jewish lady in you.
I knew my past life.
That's totally fair.
Maybe I'm an NPC. I don't have a past life. But before we move on to remote viewing, I just want to say, because it's interesting. I don't know if I ever said this on the show, but Stanley Kubrick Kubrick's daughter said that the Department of Defense or the Pentagon actually contacted Stanley Kubrick after Dr. Strangelove came out, and they were like, "Where did you get the plans for the war room?" And he's like, "I just saw it in my head. I thought it would be that way." They're like, "You got it exactly the way it is." And like they didn't believe him. They're like, "How did you get this intel?" You know, the war room they have in Dr. Strangelove, where they're having the meeting with all the generals. They're like, "You got it exactly the way it is."
It's like, you're not supposed to talk about fluoride in the water. You know,
you can kind of imagine how it would be and come pretty close, because
that's the question I ask myself about Kubrick all the time. I feel like he had to know because he knew enough people that he would have known. But at the same time, it's so obvious that you don't need to know, because that's exactly what they would do. Because they're trying to prove that it's a round table and they can't believe in King Arthur. And it's so dang prognostic. It can very quickly figure out what they're going to do because of their own selfish demands on each other and how they're all Lord of the Flies, you know?
Well, that's what we're talking about with the Akashic records. Like we have access to, like, that's how people know things. And like, you know, so I give a lot of weight to conspiracy theories before I even research them, just because, or sci-fi novels, even more than conspiracy theories. It's like, what, you know, once you write it in a sci-fi novel, it's just a matter of time, it seems to be. But even if you go look at the first Alien movie, they have iPads in that. And I saw a practical effects of how they had to make it. He's like, I knew we'd have tablets eventually. He's like, but we couldn't do it for the movie. So what we did was we had a transparency on top of a light box on the table. So it looked like it was like a screen, but it was actually just a light box with the transparency on top of it.
Well, I think technology is already, everything's available already. They just slowly bring out everything.
You think they already have the Iron Man in the air 3D diagnostics that you touch and move it around? They're just waiting.
Yeah.
Do you think that they're going to? Okay, so that's the question about like Roswell and everything like that. I mean, is technology Xanadu?
Okay, for example, okay, like I know, so one day or another, I mean, because Werner von Braun, right? You know Werner von Braun, you know, from you know, Operation Paperclip, right?
Founder of
NASA, the Nazi scientist. So he basically disclosed. You must have heard about it. His assistant, Carol Rosen, who was a lot of people try to debunk her. She basically said that he told her that there's several phases that is going to lead to the ultimate false flag event, which is the alien invasion,
right?
The UFO invasion. So I'm imagining that they've been developing, you know, these aircraft, you know, these anti-gravity vehicles, whatever, reverse engineer, whatever, you know, Roswell, Groom Lake, they already got all that technology, but they won't say anything about it. You know, now they're starting to leak it out. If you look at Fox,
you have to be careful about have the technology, because like we all have the technology. Like from reading like Iron Man comics or anything, you can just imagine what the better technology is. As soon as you see a book, you'd be like, it would be better if it, you know, like you can just imagine a million magical ways to improve the experience, and then the technology is just building a path to that point. Whether or not they actually have like working, like models of this stuff or not, I'm not sure. But yet, I mean, if the idea exists, it's hard to have an idea for something. You can't imagine something impossible. I don't know if anyone ever tried to. You can't. Anything you imagine is possible.
But that's the point. Is that it's a surprise element. No, if they knew that the anti-gravity vehicles are already in our possession, then nobody's going to be scared when it happens. You know?
Well, I mean, if you got a certain group of people that control it, so that they can decide through violent anarchy which of the people are in charge. And you know, the MJ12 document, right? The story is that at Roswell, they grabbed 12 scientists, had them investigate what was going on, or they were working on a project and they brought them out to Roswell to work on a project, and they invented something that crashed, or they had the Nazi stuff and then they were looking at that in Roswell, and then they took it to the oomph degree and they're like, whoa, we didn't realize we could do that with it when we connected something that we had from the Soviets and plus something that we invented ourselves. So who knows which direction it is, but each one of these guys, including Vannevar Bush, walks away from the Roswell crash inventing something crazy, right? Inventing Velcro, inventing magnetic tape memory, inventing the transistor, inventing the MOSFET semiconductor. I mean, this is the scene in Terminator 2, right? Terminator 2 chip.
Hold on, before you switch the screen, go back to that screen real quick. I'm sorry.
I will.
The MJ12. Go back to MJ12.
Yeah.
You see on the lower right, that's General Forrestal, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do you think about his death? You know, they said that he was basically, they said he committed suicide in the mental ward from the 30th floor. He jumped out a window and killed himself. But literally, everybody else said that he was thrown out a window gave him like massive amount of LSD and
yeah, I was told it was QB or whatever. He's on the Cubensis stuff. They gave him some crazy, and also hypnosis. Also, the story of hypnosis was that he was given some crazy, flashing lights sequencing thing. They kind of joke with it in many stereocoats that it was something kind of like that,
but he was the leader of MJ12, Majestic 12. Why did they want to kill him? What did he know?
He's the guy who knew the most. Yeah, or he's the guy who knew the most, and they replaced him. Because he wanted to keep it like public or secret or whichever direction, and somebody took it from him. And I think you can see, because if you look at Vannevar Bush and the plans for Xanadu, they were talking about how they're going to build this online, right? Xanadu, Memex, the idea that he wanted was to create the internet, to create a virtual reality where any place was every place. And this is out of their esoteric research. These guys were looking into the Vril, Maria Orsich. They're talking about how you could have a place that is psychically achievable through radio. And radio was the mode that psychics and telekinetics were interested in at the time. So they figured, hey, we've got a solution here. I mean, the question to me still is, did they contact anybody? Was it aliens, or was Roswell some sort of a light being demon kind of, did they do was it a abduction or a seance? Is my question, really.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that, what you say, the Maria, what's her name? Maria Ostrich?
Maria Orsich, yeah.
What exactly is she? I know the Nazis were all over her, but
well, they get a lot of, so before the Nazis, right? So what it was she's half Croatian, she was half German or Austrian, I forget, and she was super hot, super Croatian, but she ended up doing a lot of medium work, and so she would tell people, hey, the Vril, they're this group, right? So if you type in Vril,
she's like she talks a lot about the Palladians or something like that. Like,
yeah. Like, so the idea is that of the Pleiades, there's a number of different conscious civilizations or ideologies or something, and different energies, different frequencies you can tune into. And one of them was the Vril. And the Vril sent a bunch of messages, and there were some guys that were trying to get in touch with the Vril. Even Victor Schauberger and the Thule Society in general were all into this. But she was the one that was able to do the research. And they're like, okay, we're writing it down. What does it say? And she's like, I'm getting a picture, and it's a vacuum cleaner. Like weird things like that. And they didn't have vacuum cleaners yet, though. And so they gave her all this stuff that you'd be like, what? But it's really valuable stuff that would have completely disrupted civilization, because all of a sudden everything that we're used to was thrown out of the loop. Any way that people were used to living was disrupted by the technology that she was channeling. And so everything from water cleaning to free energy to clean free energy off of, these anti-gravity things, using electromagnetic, all this stuff. And a lot of these guys understood how they could use it for other things, because they were in groups like the Sonora Air Club or NIMSA, right? If I can find the Sonora Air Club is one of the examples, but the NIMSA was the Nationalistisch. It was a German club that was for people trying to build airships. And if you can look at some of the pictures of their designs, so you can see they were already interested in, and a lot of them were into Rosicrucianism or different magical work, as well as being into trying to invent spaceships back in the 1800s, right? But they were saying, oh, well, this vacuum that she's invented, we could probably use that in some of this technology. We could use a vacuum to create a jet. And then jets became interesting because jets were pressurized, and you could use that with a rocket. And so rockets replaced all of the electromagnetism when you get to Alan Parsons, right? In fact, Alan Parsons really didn't even like magnets. Jack Parsons. That's really funny. I did that just now. Jack Parsons
trio.
Wow, the Jack Parsons project. As a kid, when I heard Alan Parsons project, I always thought like it was about Jack Parsons. I never really I don't know why.
It's so funny. Jack Parsons is the archetype for like Iron Man and Mr. Fantastic and basically anyone who looks just like that. Like these people had such a huge effect. And like Werner von Braun, he's in The Watchmen. Alan Moore fashioned Ozymandias after as a representation of all of the technocratic elites, but specifically Werner von Braun. And that was the linchpin of his whole plot, was to stage a fake alien invasion to end the threat of nuclear war. And that's what happened at the end of the Watchmen book. They didn't do it in the movies, unbelievably, but
The thing is about Jack Parsons is that he was not a member of the club. He didn't have a degree, so he wasn't even a frat jock. So they wouldn't really let him be part of at the table. He wasn't real. You know what I mean? So he wasn't associated enough with the Illuminati, and they were so pissed that this guy understood enough about these things that he could sit up and say and create these things that they had to work with him. That's what's different, I think, a lot of time with Iron Man, because Iron Man had the prestige. You know, in the comic book, he's Batman. He's got the money. He can do what he wants. But here's a guy who's a warlock. He's betraying the secrets. They're not supposed to divulge this stuff.
I mean, his middle name is Marvel. You know, literally the whole Marvel universe is
really.
Basically
I never knew that.
Well, his dad's isn't his Marvel Whiteside, Jack Marvel Whiteside Parsons. Yeah. But I thought Marvel was his dad's last name, or Whiteside's was one of them is his.
Oh, did you see the episode? Did you see the episode with his dad? That he saw his dad. We're talking about Strange Angel, right? CBS Strange Angel. Did you see that episode? I think it's the third or fourth episode. Yeah. And he dreamed of his dad. Right? He's following his dad, and his dad brought him to the moon. Remember that sequence?
Dude, if I could find it.
That was a fantastic sequence.
He goes to Joshua Tree, and he takes drugs with this like version of himself, right? Who's his friend. And then he sees his dad. And to me, his dad is Bob Dobbs or something to that effect. Like he has this sort of look like he's this, because his dad's this great salesman. And so it has this kind of like Subgenius reference all of a sudden. I don't know if I'm looking too deep into it.
He was a military man, right? I'm trying to track it.
He's a military man, but then he's also like a salesman. He's a traveling salesman. Yeah. So, and he's got the mustache, and then there's just something about him that kind of reminded me of Dobbs.
How do I watch this, by the way, if I don't have cable TV?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, the kids these days should never go to watch Series.id. This is another problem I wanted to point out. No one should ever go to watch Series.id. This is actually something bad that I've been finding out about, and I think you all know better. So I just wanted to point out, never go to watch Series.id to look for things. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, this is it's on CBS, full access, whatever. That's where you subscribe. So,
right,
but it's too bad they canceled the series. We talked about several times. The last episode.
That's a good omen, though. Because anything that doesn't get canceled sucks. Only
the next season was going to be nuts. That's why they canceled it. They're like,
stop. The very last episode was there was a knock on the door, and then there's all these bodies, and there was an orgy the night before. So there's all these bodies all over the steps. He crawled down, and then his girlfriend, was his wife's sister, basically, opened the door, and there was L. Ron Hubbard in a suit and hat, and saying, "I'm answering your newspaper ad." And
there were some things at first, because like when they first started the show, I thought it was going to be pretty fake, but I started looking into a lot of the stuff. I realized how much of it's real. And by the way, Mark, do you know what we're talking about? Jack Parsons. Have you heard of the rocket designer? Do you know what we're saying?
No, I'm interested. I'll probably check out that series.
This guy.
All these websites, though, I'm afraid I'm getting everybody's getting their YouTube channels hacked these days. I'm like afraid to do anything online now.
Oh yeah, no, you can watch this on Amazon Prime and on different things. I think we found on Amazon Prime.
If you never heard of him, the JPL, NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, was originally named the Jack Parsons Laboratory. I've
heard the name, but I'm not familiar with his whole story.
He's also the author of the Satanic Bible.
No, that's Anton LaVey. But
we'll look up Jack Parson and Satanic Bible.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, he has his own thing, but he didn't really write the logic.
What's his connection?
He's a self-proclaimed Antichrist, basically, and he calls Aleister Crowley his father, even though he's never really met him. He's been contacting him remotely.
Where do I go to find out the connection to the Satanic Bible and Jack Parsons? I don't know this. I've never heard of this.
The Satanic Bible
is mentioned by Aleister Crowley.
LaVey's version?
Menstrual cakes, bought a mansion for things. We're skipping ahead. I just really quickly before we get there for poor Mark, I wanted to say, Mark, by the way, he did invent the fuselage that is used to this day, which is looked like a pentagram. It's a solid state pentagram for all jet planes. And he happened to be into the occult, which was weird. And they needed him because he was working on technology, and the Nazis were also working on rockets. So they said, fine, we have to finance him. But his weird interest in the occult was also why he was so good at it. Because he's like, wow, it should be a pentagram for the air intake. That's the kind of thing that freaked people out. But
basically, he's a very trained Enochian magician. He knows the language in the Enochian. Basically, they're contacting the aliens.
And Scientologist L. Ron Hubbard stole his girlfriend because his girlfriend got really into Thelema because they were in Burbank and they joined the satanic group or Thelemic group, which was like an orgy satanic occult church. They would say they're not satanic. They say they weren't satanic. They say they were sex magic. But then through L. Ron Hubbard,
it's called Babylon Working. Okay, I'm sorry. I just kind of throw this in. It's because a lot of people don't realize, to go to space, a lot of these people actually are performing this ritual called the Babylon working, which is to contact, to bring about, to evoke the goddess Babylon, and also at the end of the ritual is to create the moon child. Basically will take man to the moon. So basically, if you look at Elon Musk and also John Dee, if you know John Dee, the magician of Queen Elizabeth I, the court magician, he and Edward Kelly were doing the same thing. Basically, you need to pair up the a person and his wife and a conduit. Edward Kelly was basically a medium. He has
this is on Wikipedia. They'll tell you right here that he did it. The Babylon working was a series of magical rituals performed on January to March 1946 by author, pioneer, rocket fuel scientist, occult Jack Parsons, and Scientology founder L. Ron Hubbard. Wow, it's right here.
Yeah,
interesting.
So it's very detailed, but the ritual involves that this other man will have to do this to your wife.
Right. So, well, there's a triangle, and you're inside of the triangle, and inside the triangle, you're invoking the spirit. So something's happening, but only part of you is inside this. It's complicated and gratuitous to tell you.
Yeah, and you look at John Dee. He ended up having a child, but it's not his. It's Edward Kelly's child. So the same thing happened with Elon Musk as well. Elon Musk, and you look at Elon Musk with Johnny Depp. What was Elon Musk doing in Johnny Depp's apartment when he was still married to Heard? What's her first name again? Amber Heard.
I'm just wondering about this Jack guy. I wonder if he was still an occultist in his deathbed, or did he?
Well, yeah, because he died. He died in an explosion. Jack Parsons was blown up.
He didn't have a chance. Most people when they're dying, they usually start praying to God if they have time.
You can do both, I think, is the thing. He could, he wasn't technically a Satanist. He's a sex cultist. So that's what we keep mixing up here. But the thing is that they were very closely associated, because the Thelemites came out of the Rosicrucian or OTO connections to Aleister Crowley. Aleister Crowley was very clearly Setian and interested in Satanism. And out of L. Ron Hubbard came Scientology, which was a deviation. But Anton LaVey, he created the Satanic Bible, as far as I know, except Seth. I thought you were going to tell me that.
I'm trying to look it up. I don't know if he's something with either wrote the book or founded the church or is co-founder.
Because I find it hard to believe, because he wasn't really like a community college logic professor the way Anton LaVey was. Anton LaVey basically just took logic stuff. You found it? Send me the link.
No. I'm saying I understand what you're saying.
Anton LaVey is kind of lame. No offense.
Well, he's more like
he's all right.
Kind of,
but he's basically like, if you took ethics in community college, you don't need to read the Satanic Bible. It's way easier. I mean, unless you haven't gone and taken ethics, then read the Satanic Bible, because it'll get you through it really quickly. And also logic class, because he just basically is using Aristotelian logic. And I would say look into Baconian logic too while you're at it. So I don't know. He's not that impressive. Meanwhile, Jack Parsons was known for brutally actually doing stuff, because he didn't know any better necessarily, which is why they kind of make it look like he killed himself by accident after he lost his mind or something. I think he was just murdered.
But the thing is, L. Ron Hubbard, before he started his cult, he was in naval intelligence. He was in the Navy. And he was an officer in the naval intelligence.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember all these guys, like John Dee, even we're talking about, they're doing this weird satanic stuff, but it's also, we're talking about them because they work for the Queen, or they work for the military, or they're in charge of the
sick of all these satanic freaking people, man,
but
running everything.
They're the ones who are doing all this stuff. You know what I mean?
I always like to brag about this, but my dad was sharing office with Jesus. Well, I don't know if I even should mention him anymore. Well, did he die? Oh God, jeez,
Which one?
The Temple of Set.
Oh, Michael Aquino. Michael Aquino is supposedly dead.
Michael Aquino. Well, he was sharing office with my dad, right. but I asked my dad many times. He denied it. They were in the Letterman. They overlap.
He's not dead. He's remanifested from his physical body. See, this is very L. Ron Hubbard stuff. And yeah, again, we can be sick of talking about Satanists, but it's interesting how the leaders of the military can be members of the Temple of Set because they think, hey, Satanism, that's a little too close to Judeo-Christianity. We don't want to offend anybody.
It ain't that easy to take control of the human race and the world just lifting yourself up by your bootstraps. Like, obviously, these people have figured something out, you know?
Yeah, I'm not sick of talking about them. I'm just sick of them in general.
Existing. Yo, he's supposed to be
running everything, dude, you know?
Right. Yeah.
I'm not very religious in the sense of like religion, but I've had a lot of positive experiences with like praying to God and having good results when I'm in very hard times. I've had sicknesses where I prayed and then it got like immediately better, saying the Our Father prayer. So I'm not going to say God is this or that or this religion or that, but I don't know, man. I think it's stupid to worship Satan and Satanists and all that shit. I think that shit's stupid.
I think Satanism is a ground-based religion, meaning that this is the dimension that this is their dimension.
Well,
I mean, when you say
Satan,
you want to get out of here,
Satan
this is hell. We're in hell right now. I mean, this is Saturn is real. Saturn is. I mean, in my opinion, Saturn is Satan. You know, Santa. You know,
my idea of Satan is evil, right? Like you have good and you have evil. Satan represents the opposite of good. That's my, you know.
We got to be. So here's a thought on that. So if it's the opposite, then isn't it then as equal? So we're talking about that becomes dualism, and I don't think good and evil are equal. I think,
there's no extra parts in reality. Everything is there to serve a function. It's like you don't just take something out of a motor and be like, this is the evil part of the motor.
You know, is murdering somebody? Is that where's the good in that?
I'm not saying that it is good. I'm saying the evil is a component of reality.
But if it's Hitler, then it's good, right? So there's no such thing. No, I mean there is.
No. What I'm saying is that evil is a component of reality.
It's the gray area as well, where it's like, you know.
I think the people that study Thelema they're like Jedis. They're trying to understand the balance of how good and evil function together, and it's all part of reality. Meanwhile, Christians basically try to excise evil, which is what ends up becoming like righteous good, which is like very dangerous. It's almost as bad as evil. Lawful good. So
yeah,
I think the Thelema people are trying to understand the whole, and like evil is part of the whole, and it can't be removed or expunged. It can go out of balance like it is right now, and things are predominantly seem evil at an organizational level.
They left it out of this, but what this is context here. So he made a marriage, a foursome after seducing his wife's 17-year-old sister. Here's what this really happened. So his wife and his wife's sister had been molested as children by their Christian father, who got away with it because he was abusive and beat them, etc. And so eventually she was off having all sorts of relationships on her own, and they became members of this church in order to offend their father, but also because the church was
the church denomination they were in.
So I forget, something like Lutheran, Presbyterian, I forget, but Methodist. I think they're Methodist. But the point is that they were sexually frustrated, sexually controlled women in a masculine patriarchy society. And I know we're supposed to pretend that doesn't exist, but in the 50s, if your father's raping and beating you, I think that counts. And we're at a point where the alternative is a society that's built sexuality into your own liberty and freedom, etc. So it became maybe a therapeutic thing for them, and it wasn't technically Satanism. Now it might also have been crazy and horrible in all respects, but probably just as bad then as being molested, or maybe worse.
Well, you think about the 50s, and like the dominant thing was religion. So like if you hated the system and the system was corrupt, you could point at religion being a big time force in the corruption and the bullshit. So like you wanted to rebel against the system, so you went the complete opposite way of religion, and it was like, oh, I'm going to be a Satanist and all that. But then we see in today's age where there's a complete lack of religion. That doesn't seem very much better either. It actually seems kind of worse than having some sort of moral framework that's like, hey, like actually be good to each other and not just
but love is the law
out for me all the time and fuck everybody else. I'm just about me. You know, I had so many horrible bosses
that's a religion too. Those are two different approaches to understanding reality and how we're supposed to interact with it. Like atheism is a religion, you know, scientism is a religion. It's people they're operating under the assumption that life operates as thus, and then they're trying to act in accordance.
Well, I kind of have a big problem with religion because to me, we have to embrace the mystery of it.
Oh yeah.
And that's once we start saying like, it is this way, it is that way. Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm not religious.
Right.
But I've prayed and have had very good results with prayer. And it's not like I'm going to say, oh, well, God is this, God is that. Well, whatever God is, I've asked him for things and he's delivered many times.
I think the 10 Commandments and stuff like that in the Bible is like, you shall not do this because you're a part of us. but there's other people who are out there who are going to do it. Nowhere in the Bible is like all men will stop murdering. Moses came down to his one specific tribe and be like, you guys will not murder.
Right.
You know,
it wasn't like lions have to stop killing. Yeah.
I think we put too much into God as like too much of our own manly influence into what God is, you know? I think God is probably the most merciful and understanding of people's behavior
in the New Testament. The Old Testament, he's an SOB. Like, and I would argue that the protagonist of the Old Testament is the serpent that tries to set mankind free from mental slavery.
Absolutely.
Well, I think the Bible's got a lot of great stories, but again, it's written by man. It almost seems like it's a mechanism.
But everything that's written by man is drawn from the source, like we were talking about before. It's like when you're writing something, you're extracting it from somewhere. You're not creating it from whole cloth.
Yeah, so but it's also everything by man is also corrupted in some ways.
That's true.
Right.
But but it is worth people that take it too literally. It just you have a set of arcane rules that you live by for no reason. But people are interested in understanding it, which is I think is pretty much as far as you.
This is one like Lucifer is a funny one because Lucifer was Phosphore and Phosphore is Venus and Venus was the goddess and had to do with the bright morning star, and they ended up misunderstanding it and translating it during Erasmus period, so that became the devil, which you'll notice isn't a character in the Bible really at all. The serpent's a cunning beast of the field. They never say the serpent's the devil. So
Jesus is also the morning star too. I mean,
Jesus is the bright morning star, right?
Well, but here's the funny thing is that if you go to gematria, you go to basic order now, Jesus and Lucifer, they have the same values, 444. I deeply believe that this is what the Masonic duality is talking about. The light and the darkness, where they're the same entity, but just representing the polar differences, extremes. But if you look at Lucifer, supposedly he's supposed to be the champion of humans, because he's a fallen angel who wouldn't listen to God.
I think historically he's been conflated with Apollo. Like when people see this Statue of Liberty and they're like, that's a Luciferian statue. I think it's really like Apollo, like the sun god, the illuminator. I think a lot of these characters have been conflated with each other. I agree with Xirtus that there is no character called Lucifer in the Bible.
Yeah.
Right. Also, Hellenism is weird, right? We're supposed to not go to hell because hell is like the Greco sun, right? And Tartarus used to mean hell instead of Hades because it was the underworld.
Yeah,
but also
that's where Saturn, Kronos was banished in Tartarus, right?
Right.
So, what does that mean?
I don't really believe in hell, to be honest, or Satan.
Yeah. I agree with you. Well, I think there are forces like Satan, but it's like to envision it as like a dude, or to envision God as a dude. Like God made us in his image, like God is floating in the eternal waters with 2 arms and legs and body hair and stuff. I mean, it's totally ridiculous.
I think if our mind and soul isn't corrupted, we have a pretty good compass as to what it already is right or wrong. And a lot of it comes from selfishness or selflessness.
Absolutely.
Demons. I think demons exist. I think that selfishness is the thing that's used to ploy humanity. I think that we're often controlled by our selfishness. I think that might be a real thing.
What's dangerous about studying this stuff is if you really want to know, like we're looking at all the information possible on the internet and there's ancient books and everything. If you really want to know more, you're going to need help. And that's why people try to summon entities or want to put in a Neuralink. And like, I feel the same way. Like I want to know more. Like if there's a serpent who can come give me some forbidden knowledge, I'd be into it. I'd be interested in the brain.
That's the thing too. I'd be like, man, it'd be awesome if I could actually talk to God and he could be like, hey, this is what we need you to do. Like, guide me, right? But then, how do you know you're not just fucking crazy? Like, if that's a sign. Like, if you're talking to something that's not there and it actually talks back, it's probably a good sign that you're.
Do you worry about actually being crazy and hallucinating? I always felt like that's like gaslighting. The people who have access to extra sensory information are hallucinating it.
So you think people that are having a schizophrenic experience where they're seeing things, you think they're really seeing they're seeing a veil that's closed to the rest of us?
100%. Yeah, because the brain doesn't really function that way, where it's just like the center of the brain that's responsible for translating signals into your audio into thoughts. Like it has no engine to produce its own thoughts. So it's like different parts of the brain would all have to be misfiring in such a way that creates like you hear like specific words and sentences or see a specific image. It's like the brain doesn't even really work that way.
So it's like a government. It's like a DMT trip they're having.
There are government programs that they built in the 60s and 70s in order to send word, like voice, to people to vibrate their cochlear muscles and to actually eventually get to stimulate parts of your brain to hear sounds. So there are targeted people. There are plenty of people that said they're targeted. There are a lot of people that just go around the streets acting crazy because they've been targeted, that are just getting actual radio waves that are hitting their brains. And then there are just people that are probably, you'll call them crazy, but I'm not convinced they're not talking to somebody. There could
you can drive yourself crazy, like the process of making increasingly bad decisions to you're just like, now I'm so far into the dark woods, I don't even want to try to get back to the lighted path. I'm going to keep forging new territory into the dark woods. And that's like driving yourself insane. I've been partway down that road, but the idea of actually hallucinating, I don't believe in hallucinating. I think that's a complete gaslighting that somebody made up to, you're receiving information. It's coming from somewhere.
Yeah, a lot of these drugs are crystals, and the idea that crystals are actually resonance to talk to these demons or spirits, and that eventually you're getting your blood associated with the specific meth demon or whatever.
Did you know the pineal gland is actually crystal? A pineal gland is actually crystalline structure inside. Did you know that? It's actually transmitted that way. But I'm trying to say something real quick about my experience with this whole religion situation. My dad, was sponsored to the U.S. through the Seventh Adventist, right? Protestant, basically. My grandfather was a preacher in China, and then he contacted the American missionary. Supposed to come here. My dad came here at 14 years old. My mom is Catholic, so since little I've been raised by Catholic. I have to go to two churches, and they've been fighting over each other whether to take me to here or there. And then there's the worship on, of course, Seventh-day Adventists, they worship on Saturdays like the Jews do, and so there's a lot of conflicting ideas. And I'm like, there's Jesus, and then there's my mom's church that has a Jesus that's a Chinese baby with a Chinese mama. I see these statues, and I'm like, there's some whole bunch of hypocritical ideas being fed to me down how many years. And by the time I moved out of the family, I became an atheist for a good 10 years. But it wasn't until I went down the rabbit hole with some crazy out of body experiences, and also I went to do ayahuasca and all that stuff.
I think the problem is there's too much power in using religion to control people. So, and then they can I think the best way to do it is to have a belief in something more than yourself, have a belief in God or whatever, but accept the mystery of it. Accept that it's just not.
That's Shintoism. Yeah. Shintoism is a very positive religion to me. They pray, but to no specific gods, and they don't purport to know anything, but they appreciate everything in life. And like when a Shintoist like breaks like a mug or something, they'll put it back together with liquid gold, and then it's like an even more valuable mug to them. So like everything, your whole life experience, you're imbuing things with your own goodness, and it's very like Yoda from the Force. So there's tons of other kinds of religion that are have nothing to do with stories about the creation. Like Buddhism doesn't really have a coherent creation story, and like Shintoism is just like, listen, you can't know any of this stuff, but like here's a cool way to live life where you appreciate everything and pray. And
we have a tendency, right, as humans. Go ahead, Eddie. Go ahead, Eddie. Sorry. I mean, we have a tendency as humans to not want to have like empty spaces. We want to fill it in with something, right? So we'll just make it up and fill it in. But it's like we have to accept there's so many things that we're incapable of knowing. And when it comes
for now, but soon we can send electric signals through our brain and stimulate our brain to perform better. There's already a lot of experiments with that. And basically, if you have something like a Neuralink, potentially, unless it takes you over and turns you into a zombie or whatever, you could become super intelligent.
Well, yeah,
I'm a little scared about that one.
I don't think there's any way you can make an ant intelligent enough to understand, when I'm jacking off on top of them, what's going on there.
Sure. Yeah. Like you're not going to understand the true nature of God with a Neuralink, but you might be able to understand the true nature of the moon or the sky or things that evade us totally now, no matter how much we read, research, study, and do math.
I might have to be an idiot if the Neuralink comes out and everybody's going to be intelligent, I'll just have to settle for being an idiot compared to all of them.
There's going to be a huge Neanderthal conflict problem when a significant proportion is super intelligent of the human race and other people are just choosing. You're basically consigning yourself to live as a pet.
Can't they connect can't they come up with like a wireless system where they could connects to my brain waves without having implanted in my damn head?
Yeah, of course. you know, life is a certain amount of years, though.
I mean, imagine that if you're the guy that gets that shit implanted in your head, and then 10 years later they come out with some wireless shit, and you didn't even need that stuff, and now you got this stuff stuck in your head for the rest.
Well, life's too short. Then you have like 10 extra
years
of knowledge and head start to work on new ideas and stuff.
I think you will find though that something that's connected will always be better or more. Like you'll have less noise interference. You'll be able to lock it out from wireless.
Yeah, like airlock it. I'd kind of not like to be Wi-Fi hacked in my brain.
Right. I just don't trust it, man. I don't trust it.
It's a corporation. I mean, how do you trust this thing that's
exactly, dude? I don't trust anything anymore.
No, I mean,
put some shit in my brain. I don't even trust you to give me like proper food that's not going to kill me.
Of course.
Let alone put some crap.
Well, I don't want the federal version of it. I want it to be made by a private company for sure. If there's any of those left that are tech companies.
A funny thing,
what about DMT? Would you guys take DMT and try to learn new things that way? I've never done it. I'm a little scared.
I did ayahuasca. That I can. I mean, I'm not trying to sell it, but I can easily say it's like the single biggest change in my life. It's the single biggest impact.
I've listened to
having my babies, getting married, finding a wife. This is like it was out of this world. I mean, I'm not trying to say that everybody will enjoy it just like I did, but it wasn't enjoying it. It was grueling because I was being.
It's like dying.
I had to face myself. I was like, oh my god, I'm a terrible person.
I've listened to too much of Alex Jones talking about it. He scared me off of it.
Yeah, I worry about his. He's very much like Yahweh in the garden. Don't be. The knowledge is evil. Don't have knowledge. It's extra information. Like you're not going crazy or hallucinating when you do DMT. I assume you're.
When he talks about all the civilizations that like got obsessed with psychedelics and how they always end up with human sacrificing, that's like eventually it's all pretty flowers.
All the ones that don't get obsessed with hallucination. I mean, like we have like if you call our Department of Defense or whatever is.
But it always seemed like you look at the Mayans or the Aztecs. I'm always getting confused, but like it always starts pretty, and the next thing you know, it's a priest chopping his balls up, asking for your baby so you can rip the heart out and eat it.
That's
like they always want blood. It's like that's the New
Testament right there. Is stop sacrificing. And first you stop sacrificing your own child, then you're sacrificing animals, then you stop sacrificing animals, and you're just done making sacrifices. That's pretty much in it, at least in the Western,
I think sometimes you make it too complicated. It's like be as selfless as you can possibly be. Try to get rid of your selfishness as much as possible. You keep it as simple as that.
Yeah, but then you become so simple that someone who hasn't been living that way takes you over and sacrifices you.
Sure, yeah. Simplicity, I mean, we don't know. I mean, that's very much in the garden. We are supposed to be 100% simple, walking around on all fours naked, just just eating fruit and stuff like that. We weren't supposed to know anything to create all.
Well, you got to know when to be a monk and when to be a warrior. There's a time for each.
Well, I think here's what I learned about from ayahuasca. Okay, one single biggest thing. Now you can talk about my alien contact. I'm going to talk about how I got over death, because after that experience, all of a sudden I used to be so scared of death. Like the finite, the life that you live is going to end one day. You're going to run out of breath. You're going to gas out. You're going to drown or burn or whatever. But after that experience, I suddenly realized that death is an illusion. I mean, I'm not saying life is an illusion itself, but I feel I kind of figured it out. That's an intuitive feeling of it.
Yeah, once you have a hard trip like that, it's the idea of non-existence you realize is like not a threat. It's an impossibility. Like the idea that you're going to die and just blink out, that people think, and that's just it. Your experience is over. Well, your name is over and your ego is over, but your experience is going to be much broader and more intense after you die. And the craziest trip is going to be the moment of dying itself. And like, I think a big part of like any man who's really trying to like hone and fashion himself is specifically to not fear death, because it robs you of incredible experiences in life if you're afraid of death. And it's one of the very positive aspects of manlyhood, like not being afraid to get in a jet fighter and go have this amazing experience and raise your chances of death by hundreds of thousands %.
We saw that with COVID.
Losing your ego, the death of the ego. You know, the ego is like, oh, I'm so self-preserving. I will not let anything go. I got all these material possessions, and
it's a balance because you do want to, aside from material possessions, you do want to achieve amazing things in life. Like, I don't think like just because this isn't the full experience and this is a very temporary, short experience in this meat body machine or whatever, that doesn't mean it's not worth trying to achieve amazing things and blaze new territories. I think that's very much a part of it. I don't think it's a game, but I think that's the point of the experience, is to take risks and try to do amazing things.
I don't know, it makes a lot of sense that the test idea, like, again, it's all a mystery, who knows, but the idea that this is all a test, right? Like if I had this great amazing world that I didn't want any shitheads in, I would put them through a lifelong test, and by the end of that you would know whether they were a shithead or not. You'd be like, nope, sorry, you're a shithead, you're not coming to my beautiful paradise.
I think that's the funny thing, like the idea that it's a test is the wrong approach. Like that it's a test in the sense that the universe is being tested by God playing all the parts, and we're supposed to fulfill changes and experiment and learn lessons or something. Maybe that's it. But the idea that we're just supposed to like pass or fail, it's like,
I think on a really just basic level, we're also a part of the machinery that makes whatever the whole thing God is go. Just the way like we would be horrified to become a gut biome. You know, you have the gut biome in you, the little single cellular guys and stuff. You'd be horrified if you knew you're going to reincarnate as one of them. But once you're one of them, you'd be horrified by the thought of being a human. And they're just things that make the body function. And we're just things that make the body of the bigger body function, you know, and the whole earth is making some bigger system function. So it's like, I think we're everything we do, our good and our bad choices and good and evil, is a mechanical function. And when things go out of balance, the whole machine goes out of whack and things have to correct.
Well, what if God is like the ultimate intelligence, the ultimate creator, and basically what we think of heaven and God is just some civilization that's gotten so into they've unlocked technology as far as it can go, right? So they live forever, they live in a paradise, and they don't want to let shitheads in. So you're going to have people that are going to be, you have the ability to run people through a 100-year simulation.
Why would they let them in at all then?
Every single
Why would you let them in?
Because you're bored. You want more. You want cool people, right? So
isn't boredom a bad trait? Like they have a bad trait if they're bored.
Okay, well, not bored.
The whole setting up the test thing is like,
I don't want to get into a boring place.
And the only risk of death is letting in psychopath killers.
I see what you mean. Like if we created like AI bots before we actually put them into machines or onto the internet, we'd put them all in a simulation to see which ones of them are psycho AIs, and then we wouldn't use those ones to pilot taxi cabs. You know,
exactly. So you can simulate a whole lifetime, and then by then you know exactly what you're going to get from that being. So you can
even if you are to create artificial beings like that, which is basically what God did and what we do when we create AI, and we would want to test it in a locked environment, even in that circumstance, their ability to be creative and make their own choices does lead to art and greatness and love and everything. Like there is nothing that has free will to behave good or bad that doesn't have the capacity for like godly love, beautiful art, all that stuff. So like no matter how artificial you are or whether we're in a simulation right now, that doesn't limit your potential at all. If you're having an experience and you're steering it, the potential is unlimited.
I kept thinking about, I presented 2 weeks ago on the think tank was Eddie Bravo. He was on I think he was on Joe Rogan. I don't know, one of those talk shows he was on. He talked about Freemason's goal is to kill the creator. That's the ultimate goal. And then my argument was that how do you kill the creator, the God, without believing in it? I mean, you want to kill God because you don't believe in it, or you believe in it and you want to kill it.
These are people that are,
and that's what they say. You have to believe in the creator in order to join Freemasonry in the first place. Otherwise, you cannot kill it. But I never got around to discuss why do we want to kill the creator, like how we creating AI and trying to kill what we are right now. Move on to the next phase. It's almost like this Promethean evolution. Where
Oedipian.
I don't know if I'm.
It's more Oedipian. It's Oedipus. Oedipus. You kill your father and then you make love to Mother Earth or rape her. I guess is what Terminator's about.
Exactly like Saturn. Castrating Cronus, and then Cronus castrating Uranus, right?
or something worse. Mark, what were you about to say? I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, a lot of these people are people that grew up hating the religious society that dominated the society they were in. And that's basically just they scapegoated that as like the problem with everything is God and religion, and it's not even really God. It's the corrupt religious structures that dominated their society at the time.
Yeah.
Well, it's like Dark Side with the anti-life equation. Like he's searching for the anti-life equation to end all reality. I guess just because when you're like, you have like penultimate power, you know what I mean? Then the most impactful thing you could do would be to end the entire reality. That's just the final move, you know. Well, some people have that like bug. I don't understand people who think that way, but that's like Nimrod and the tower. You know, that was like that's like the Nimrod archetype too, like competing with creation itself.
Here's another hypothesis. Okay, so we heard William Shakespeare say, "All the world's a stage," right? The reality is all a hallucination. It's a collective hallucinating.
all the world is Jesuit staging, right?
Yeah. So would it be so bad that the stage collapse, and then suddenly we come to a rude awakening? Oh wow, this is all play. I mean, we're working so hard to build up this this business, and all of a sudden the whole thing's a joke.
Right. Vanilla Sky.
But the only competing business is animal intelligence of no creativity or ability to change your situation at all. We're the only thing we know of that has the ability to change its whole paradigm and situation and put on these plays that everyone has to participate in. We don't know that there's once you go beyond, once you have philosophical thought, we don't know if it might be component to the experience that if you have philosophical thought, you make things dramatic is what I'm trying to say.
You ever read The Master?
We don't have Vulcans in real life. I mean, maybe there's Vulcans out there that haven't.
I got to stop reading the comments because everybody, they act like I'm saying this like I believe it. I'm just throwing shit out there that are just thoughts I've had for crying out loud.
Thought experiments.
I'm not saying that's what it is. At the end of the day, it's a mystery. I don't fucking know. None of us know.
There's this book called
we gotta talk though. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Why are they mad at you in particular?
I don't know. Someone else said that I sound very religious for someone that's not religious. No, again, I'm not religious. I think a lot of religion is bullshit control, but I would say I'm maybe spiritual in some way because I believe in a higher power.
You know what? It's a really good sign when there's contrarians in the chat. That means you have.
I got a Joe Rogan it posting those.
Exactly. The Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov. So he was thrown into a gulag. I'm sorry, the words for this. And then they decided to destroy his book. So he rewrote it on toilet paper and butcher paper and smuggled it out over 20 years. And then now we have this version of it, which is awesome. And it's one of my favorite books. I forget why. Oh, yeah. Because at one point, the devil comes in and meets him and says, "Oh, hi, I'm this guy. And by the way, let's have a conversation about destiny and man. And, don't worry about who I am." But I just want to wonder, do you think that man has any control over his destiny? I mean, think about it. If you can tell me that you'll meet me here in a week, can you be sure? Like, how do you know? Or how about in 1,000 years? I mean, if you can't know where your body's going to be in 1,000 years, you can't have control over your destiny in 1,000 years. That's such a small amount of time in the natural scale of things. So how do you know that you have control over destiny or like where you were born or anything like that? And so he starts to mess with this guy, and then it starts this trolley problem. And it's pretty interesting because a lot of the time we talk about utilitarianism, there's a trolley and, there's kids there and there's a doctor there. And it's like this doctor could save 1,000 or 1,000,000 kids in her career. And then there's 4 kids. Like, do you save the 4 kids or do you save the doctor? Now, the 4 kids, they might grow up to become doctors themselves, in which case, in 20 years, they might save hundreds of thousands. And so it becomes a utilitarian argument, which is going to do the most good for the most people. And it becomes very cold and calculated.
That's why people want to kill God, by the way, because that's what existence is like. But it's just that, that's the side effect of having existence is you're constantly forced with making these, what's the movie called? Sophie's Choices.
I mean, that's very hypothetical, though. Like, you're going to be in a situation where you get to choose. No, normally you're going to have one choice to save one person or 2 people. You're not going to be able to.
These are the kind of thought experiments that form political ideologies. Like utilitarianism is the basis of all progressivism. So that's the utilitarian experiment.
There are plenty of circumstances
you keep one 70-year-old loser alive for 10 more years when you could pay for 7 teachers,
There's something, so you said musical chairs is real, like this does happen in the world where there's not enough chairs to sit down in circumstances. And it could be, do we hire do we hire a person or do we destroy the life of someone by not hiring them, right? This person might have gone to school to become the university head of Soviet agricultural theory at University of California, Santa Cruz, but only like one person can do that. And so we've got a few people to sit down at the one chair, so it might not be murder. It might be
somebody just wrote in the comment, this is sacrifice. It's time for sacrifice.
Yeah.
That guy's been taking too much DMT.
I choose Eddie. Not me.
I lost my chair. I guess.
Actually, it should be me. I don't have any kids. You can live, Eddie. I'll be the sacrifice.
But yeah, I mean, society's had rules on that shit for a long time, right? Like you save the women and children first. If the is it the only doctor that for the whole village? Maybe that would make it different. If you have one doctor and the doctor doesn't live, then a bunch of people are not going to get healthcare and die. Then. So, I mean, you have to weigh everything.
It's so dangerous once you start weighing everything.
Yeah. Because you have to decide what you value.
Becoming a progressive.
Yeah, life ain't easy, man.
We have to save these women. Why? Because they're going to produce more doctors and soldiers. Why? I mean, so we're telling you that women are children going to become women. Why? I mean, so all of these rules that we've set for what we value and everything that does call into question. Because if you start making let's say you took all of that data and you made a machine that did that, right? And so you're in an auto-driving car and it's coming to the road, and now your car is going to decide for you whether to save the child or the doctor.
Do you know what the correct answer to the trolley problem is? Is don't engage in these kind of thought exercises. And if you're actually have an incident happening in your life where you have to choose between saving two people, trolleys, go in it totally uninformed and just react on reflexes. Because when you go down these thought experiments, it kills way more people than the guy in the trolley and the guy in the tracks.
You got to do it for the
trick is to move the trolley out to the country and turn it into
don't engage with that. Be like, I'll do it on reflexes when I get there, because it's just man, I've seen nothing good.
What do you do if you're a military doctor, like you're in a war zone? I mean, I think that's probably the best way to handle it. You save who you have the best chance of saving.
Yeah. Right.
But you never know. What if you save a guy that ends up being a rapist, and the guy who had the second best chance of saving was going to cure cancer?
I mean, you can't assume.
That's why you can't. It's self-torture.
Yeah, I agree with you. Some of these things they're thought experiments that are kind of like,
because it never leads to a good result. You won't, like you said initially, you're never going to be in that situation. But now you're in the situation where you're thinking about who you're going to kill. That's the bad situation. You don't remember why in the first place.
You remember why his kid, kicking a guy, right? And he's kicking this guy. He's like, "What are you doing? I'm kicking this guy. Why?" Well, stop doing it. Well, because he kidnapped my kid. Why? Well, because I beat up his wife. Why? Well, because he killed my sister. Well, why? Because my sister beat up and killed his parents. Whatever it is. And eventually it just becomes a jig. They start dancing because they realize they beat up both of the guys. But it's who's to say you should get involved in the trolley problem at all, I think is the issue. And also, have you seen the movie M? Oh, go ahead, Eddie.
Oh no, I because this whole trolley thing kind of reminds me of the scene. You guys seen Edge of Tomorrow, right? With Tom Cruise.
Oh yeah.
And what's her? Yeah, that scene. What's the woman's name? I forgot the actress name. The British woman. She basically, at a beat. Oh, sorry. What's her name? Is
it Kate Winslet? No, it's a French girl, isn't it? Or I forget.
No, she's from England. What's her name?
Emily Blunt.
Anyways, oh yeah, Emily Blunt. So Emily Blunt, she's the hero, right? Everybody worships her. She had the maximum kill, right? So they're fighting the aliens on the beach, and then he was trying to protect her, and then he ended up getting injured, paralyzed, and then she took his battery. Right? She's like, "Did you just deactivate my battery?" She's like, "Oh, sorry, I need a battery," and then she just walked away. And you think that moment was like, okay, they're both trying to fight for mankind, trying to fight for the greater good, but there's that selfish choice where she's like, "Well, I'm the better warrior here. I'm gonna pluck this out of you, and so I can move on." And you're a half-assed warrior. Also, I'm not gonna let you go.
Also, the day was going to repeat, to be fair. But there's this movie called M from 1931. Fritz Lang, who made Metropolis in 1927, later went to make this film. Have you seen M?
No.
It's his first sound film that he made. It's super weird because there's not a lot of music. There's a whistling kind of thing going on there, that creepy whistling kind of thing. But basically, there's this creepy dude who's marked with the M as the murderer or whatever, and he's scary. But it's this horrifying movie because you've got this. It's so eerie, and this kid, and so this little girl is missing, and you can see the dinner table. Her place is there, and she's not at the table. And so the whole community is like, oh God, what happened? She's disappeared. And then she's been kidnapped and murdered by this M guy. And so finally the entire town is looking for him, and they contact the prostitutes, they contact the gamblers, and the police try to arrest all of these criminal underlords, but they had nothing to do with it. And finally all the criminals get together and they're like, well, we cannot allow this to go on. You know, like this girl who's been missing, now they're looking through our rackets. And our rackets of crime are, you know, they're upright crime. You know, we have gambling and we have drugs and things like that and prostitution, but we're not murdering little girls. So we, the criminals, we, the underbelly, we, the community, have to work together to find this guy. And so they go out of their way to actually track him down. And when they find him, they have a trial of all the criminals putting this man on trial. It's a jury of peers, really. And they have to decide what to do with him and whether to execute him and not. And I find that to be more relatable to our legal system and to our ideology of a society. We're in a system where we're thinking, hey, everybody's a criminal. So then allow the criminals to be jury of their own peers, right? This is the same reason that Jefferson Davis in the Confederacy wanted to have his slaves have their own jury and their own trials and their own courts. He allowed them to decide their own issues amongst themselves. And the same reason that the British wanted Americans to run their own courts, right? Rather than run the courts for them. So I feel like this is our system. Our system is criminals judging criminals for crimes, and it's designed to protect criminals, right? Because that way
it's called micromanagement.
Overran. Yeah. Well, Australia is like this too. Australia, you know, they found judges that were the most famous judges in Australian history started out as life criminals. Like, well, you understand what it's like to be a criminal and what it's like to be treated like a criminal, and you'd probably make a good judge, you know.
But you know what? I don't want to go into fringe theories again because I feel like America is another Commonwealth. We never were really. Isn't like that eerie feeling that now that Prince Harry is my neighbor now? You know?
That's the point of anti-disestablishmentarianism, is that all of these places, the Virginia Company, where these are companies and they're allowed to self-manage their franchise to a level, right? To a level. But also what it says is the British aren't in charge either, because in 1811, 1812, their governments, you got the statue of George Peabody in front of the Bank of England. George Peabody's born in Ohio, you know, and he's one of Carnegie Mellon guys. So when you think about how the Rothschilds took over and the Warburgs and JP Morgan only owned 8% of the banking JP Morgan company, right? So then the rest of the JP Morgan companies owned by Warburgs, Rothschilds, Rockefellers are even invested. It's a conglomerated effort that becomes Venrock, right? And Venrock is what invests in Apple, but also has money from the U.S. military, from all of the military patents and the war debts from the 1890s and from the 1920s. And the 1930s and 40s. So they take that and they create Xerox, right? So CTC becomes IBM, becomes Xerox, becomes PARC. PARC becomes Apple. And so all of the steps along the way, it's military industrial complex with the international European banking cartels. You know,
it's very bizarre. I mean, even if you look at the presidents, you heard of the rumors saying like all the presidents are related to the Queen of England. All related to King John of Lackland, who is the one who signed Magna Carta. And if you look at Magna Carta, is that concept, right? Like he couldn't manage these other lords who want to overthrow him, right? Because they think that he's centralizing his power too much. And then something about depth, right?
It's funny because that girl's from Santa Cruz, right? Or she's from Aptos. So David,
she is.
She went to the same school as David Plate. It's not loading the pictures, but
well, she's like 20 years old now. But
it's a circle map. There, this one here.
So she basically, she said that all the presidents besides Martin van Buren, who was the only Dutch president, was not in.
Well, they're all connected to the House of Orange, though. So I think we might find a connection there too.
More or less, they're cousins.
but it's weird. We have this idea that the Magna Carta freed us, and the Magna Carta, all it did was it at gunpoint or sword point forced a guy to sign away his rights. That's all that happened.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like he didn't lose his kingship. He's buying time. You know, he knew that he's being overpowered by the lords who came into his court and tried to kill him. But they agreed to share the power, right? So I think America is kind of the same thing. It's okay, even though we won the Revolutionary War, but it's a bargaining table. You want to sign independence, but here, this is what you got to do. This is what you got to do. Benjamin Franklin himself, I think he's a spy. Same thing with the Hamilton, the central banker. These people, they're all British agents, in my opinion. But they're trying to work it out. That's why Benjamin Franklin said that quote, the famous quote, right? It's a republic if you can keep it, right? So it could be even more blatant than that. He's like saying, well, here's a new contract, but there might be a time when you can lose control over this country. And we're gonna I don't know how to put it together, but I have a feeling that we're about to expire. I mean,
what's the story with Ben Franklin as a spy? I know he was in France.
Well, he's the ambassador. Well, he's the ambassador in London, right? And he has an estate in London, and you heard about that under his London estate, there were like 24 children's bones.
Yeah, but but hey, to be fair, he also had children's bones under his estate in Pennsylvania.
I know he does autopsy. He studies medicine, right?
Well, sure. I mean, I don't know, man. Imagine if that, like, that's gonna be my excuse too. I'll be like, yeah, I study autopsies. It's for research.
Somebody needs to check. Somebody needs to check your house out, dude.
God, what? Like, that's crazy. That's so crazy. Don't worry, it's all for science.
He lived there after a doctor, because like early biology, that's how they would study it. They'd have to just find dead bodies, or they'd pay like people to they'd pay people just to give them dead bodies, and eventually that led to people just killing people so they could make money. But I heard the timeline didn't really match, that it wasn't really his. Those bodies weren't there from him. They were like before or some shit like that.
Really? He's got 2 properties in 2
I never heard about
continents?
the second property.
I don't know.
I remember reading about the one in London.
I heard he also has one in France, and there's one in Pennsylvania. Yeah, I thought there's like another one in France, but I don't know that they've corroborated that it's his bones. That was the one I'd heard he hadn't corroborated. But yeah, he's a pretty interesting character.
He has like the biggest head. Like, right, you go to the signing of the independence. He's like the one guy who had head that's bigger, twice as big as anybody else in the room.
Actually, one of my
really monstrous about it.
No, yeah, Holly says, Andreas, nice guy, not a cannibal. I'm not a cannibal. I get enough protein. It's the vegetarians I'm always worried about. I have these friends who are all vegetarians, and they say, if I ever stopped being a vegetarian, I'd go straight to human. I'm like, I know. That's why I don't trust that. Like, you have no self-control. What's wrong with you?
One of my science teachers was related to him. He's actually Mr. Franklin, and he actually looked like Ben Franklin. It's crazy.
That's pretty cool. Did he look like he was part black?
No, he was just a bald, fat guy.
I'm so convinced that Ben Franklin was like an 8th black.
I mean, he looked like Ben Franklin without the longer hair on the sides.
Did he rock the rectangle frames?
No, I don't remember him wearing glasses.
Isn't Franklin a Jewish name or German? Or what's the
German name? Yeah,
Frank.
Yeah.
Frank.
But I mean, but the thing is, the story is that he was an 8th black. His great grandfather had been a slave owner who was black and owned a plantation, and it also had land in Brazil or some other part of South America. And so he had like Caribbean stock, similar to a lot of the founding fathers, right? This is the story that Disney's popularized with their musical about Alexander Hamilton, that Alexander Hamilton was from Haiti, and guess what? Wore a powdered face. There's a lot of black characters that did this. The Black Mozart, Joseph Boulogne Chevalier. This is one of my favorites. This guy here. He's the great musician. Like, that's the first thing. He's one of the greatest musicians from a period we associate with Eurocentrism. It's really not Eurocentric. And the other thing that's funny is the painting. I can just find him fencing.
This movie's coming out, right?
There's a movie about him. That's cool.
The movie's coming out.
I hope they put this into the movie. This painting here. This is how I heard about him as a kid. So I saw this painting. And what do you see? You see a white man fighting a lady, right? But what you don't. What you see Joseph Boulogne in white powder, wearing whiteface, fighting a Freemason dude, who's a member of one of Ben Franklin's French sister of the seven sisters, right? Dealing with the Pleiades, another esoteric group. So she's kind of an occultist. And this fraternal occultist loved to fence in a dress and in wearing women's clothing. So this famous painting, of this biracial transvestite fencing match, right? And that's what it was like at the time. So it's important to understand.
It's way ahead of its time. Non-binary, right here.
Yeah. I mean, but so we get confused because we think about people wearing white powder. It's like, well, did people do it? Yes, that's the answer. And the idea that the British were freaked out because of their deals with the Moroccans and that they no longer trusted the Arabs or the Spanish, particularly because the Spanish had invaded England and their Armada beaten. So Shakespeare's Othello, right, is talking about a black character trying to scare people, saying Spaniards are black and we should be different than them, right? And that is the beginning of racism in England against black people, which leads to the Americas. But in the Americas, you've got, even the possibility that George Washington was an eighth black or something to that effect. And then he
doesn't have any white children. Well, everybody was Washington black.
Right. George Washington married a woman, a widow, and her children died. But then he also had a slave as a Venus, and then Venus and him have an entire line of children and family. So it seems like they were probably hiding the fact they were black because of the British fear of Morocco and Spain, and George Washington's association with the cherry tree, which we talked about a few days ago, but it's interesting nonetheless. It's just the idea that he says he cut down the cherry tree, but the reason he cut down the cherry tree is because the Moroccan flag is a cherry tree. So that's the name of this green pentagram, which if you look down from an aerial view, you're seeing a tree. And so at one point, Morocco was the first nation to recognize the United States. And then we didn't support them afterwards. And then we had a big fight with them during the Barbary Wars centuries later. So it's just another example of the fact that we're probably a lot more racially inclusive than we think we are. We're not just these
well, I think America's
project.
The new Babylon. This is the new Babylon. We're basically
Babylon's a one world government. I mean,
it was the original New World Order, right? And it got
I think America is it's forming up right now, the one world government, and if you're like you're saying, if we've all been subjects the entire time, a lot of nations, not just the United States, like you can look at how different nations are kind of used, and we're just like, we're the thug, we're the thug of the New World Order, America. If you got a problem somewhere, someone's not behaving, someone doesn't want to give you their gold or get on the IMF or whatever, you send America, we're like we're just the thug of the New World Order. And, England runs the bank,
it will very soon be the UN, the Blue Helmets deal is that if you don't have enough money to contribute to the UN, you're supposed to send
What's the difference between Blue Helmet and White Helmet?
I forget the rules, but I know the Blue Helmets are scarier. I think the deal is that the Blue Helmets are the ones that they draft or something.
Okay.
I mean, so I'll see what it says here. Blue Helmet Initiative. The deal is if you don't have enough money, you have to send your people. How is that any different than the Roman Empire recruiting mercenaries and drafting mercenaries and janissaries?
Security Council, right? Now the UN Security Council is falling apart because Russia's being sanctioned. Basically, they try to kick Russia out of the Security Council, and China is still the largest the contributor of soldiers of the UN. I don't know. I have a feeling that here's another esoteric thing I almost forgot about is that U.S. is reaching its return, Pluto return. Pluto return, right? Like Saturn returns 30 years, right? 30 years. Pluto return is 264 years. So basically, literally last year, in the next 2-3 years, we're going through it right now. And Pluto return is basically
on 2-2-2-2-2. That's pretty good. I like it.
Yeah, it happened already. So basically, it's the death of the republic. It's a full cycle of the life. I forgot the exact definition of Pluto return, but it's supposed to be the end of a government, a dynasty, and Pluto's going around the sun for a whole 264 years. So now it says 248 years there. I don't know. There's different calculations, but I think we also do with debt, right? And another funny thing, the debt hit the ceiling, right? Our treasury hit $31.4 trillion. What was that? Does that number ring a bell?
Why?
31.4
Yeah, pi.
It's pi. Oh yeah, you said pi. Yeah, it's pi. It's a full circle. I think we've reached a full circle.
Mm. And then everyone wants to have a revolution, which also means to complete one full circle. So it's like things do move in cycles, man. Everyone's pushing it along, whether they realize it or not. Whether you're in the streets or in the banks or where you're at, this is a cycle that keeps repeating, and we're all like mechanical parts in it.
It definitely feels like the elites are trying to get as much wealth as they can before the whole thing crashes down.
I think, yeah,
including us, even doing this is like a big part in it, you know? Like if there was like a real coup, we'd be like the first types of people killed. Or like, you know, like the talkers, like the intellectuals and stuff.
Speak for yourself, man. I'm going to live. I'm going to be running I'm going to be running the underground freaking resistance.
Nice.
Like the Red Dawn scenario.
Yeah.
I wonder how many people will be. I mean, we're hitting a debt ceiling. At a certain point, all these states will have to offer are mercenaries for their armies to take over other states. When that's done,
need to start leaving, and that's
okay. But then you just have BRICA, right? So then if BRICA, wait, where's another one? BRICAs. Is that what they wanted?
I agree. Dissolution of the union would be ideal.
BRICS,
I did not want to go to turning point.
Want me to say BRICSA? So all right, shout out to South Africans who wanted to be part of BRICSA because they want to feel included. Good for you. But anyway, oh wait, is it there? I don't even see Arabia. What happened here? They're just, you know what? I don't know how abracadabra. It's gonna be abracadabra eventually, is what it's gonna be. But they're gonna have something that's gonna work, right? It's gonna be this alphabet versus alphabet thing, and I'm pretty sure that's going to end all questions of the economics of. Is there going to be a future to the dollar, or is there going to be a future to mercenary state? The states are going to have an option one way or the other, but that's the same as Star Wars, where you had the trade empire or the republic or whatever it was, right? The confederation versus the republic, and eventually they both get swallowed into the empire because they're both going to economically exhaust themselves working against each other instead of just constantly being one trade network. I mean, I feel like that is the future, right?
Yeah, but what does debt really mean when you're printing currency digitally? You're not even really printing the currency. You're just creating it digitally.
I mean, debt. Let's look at Black's Law Dictionary. I don't think I have.
I mean, it's like you literally have a money tree that just can grow money. And when they're counting the debt, it's literally just like all the money they printed. It's like almost a money supply.
Yeah, it really is alchemical. I mean, it's
like sum of money due by contract. So contract is the important thing here, and contracts can only be made by voluntary parties.
Look up debt when you're monetarily sovereign.
Well, here's the thing.
Well, that's the question. You can only have a debt when you're monetarily sovereign. Anytime you have a debt, otherwise, you can't technically have that debt. You know, because you haven't voluntarily, and there's also efficiency of breach.
Yeah, but there's nobody
blows my mind is that the contract with Federal Reserve was supposed to expire in 2013. You know, because that's the 100th year of the Jackie Allen the Federal Reserve Act, right, signed by Woodrow Wilson. It's supposed to, because our debt is collected by the Federal Reserve. China already dumped almost all of their debt already. They don't want to hold U.S. Treasury bonds anymore. It's melting away. So we have this huge bubble that's been blowing. How do you buy your own credit card debt? You know, Americans are just like, oh, well, we're gonna pay for this. Oh, now we're gonna pay reparation to the $5 million to each of these people. Like, where do you come up with that money? This is a balloon that's ready to pop, man. You know, and Federal Reserve is the biggest machine. That's it's the biggest balloon generator. Why is it still here? 2013, and 10 years later, it's still running our U.S. Treasury to the ground.
God, speaking of which, we're actually like, since we're near the end here, let's actually start pushing on some of those points, because North Korea says U.S. drills have pushed situation to extreme red line, meaning Asian DEFCON 1. You just saw the article a second ago. Let me pull it back up of where did it go? Taiwan activates defense in response to China incursions. This is all happening right now.
Taiwan. Yeah, and the 30 jet planes they sent yesterday. 30, like they already crossed the international water. They basically invaded. So they didn't have air raids. I grew up in Taiwan. I was used to air raids. Okay, since I was little. I live in
longer than I expected. I figured that the summertime was just going to be go, and because everyone talked about it in the summer as much as possible, they tested how much people cared, and I don't think people cared enough. And now here it is. I think they're starting the major, as you said, DEFCON 1, Asian DEFCON 1.
And it's I mean, look at Ukraine. That thing is falling apart. I mean, I really don't think Ukraine is really. I think Russia's got a lot of the people died, but they're making progress. China is worried about Russia, but now they feel confident that now they can make their move because, you know, their alliance. You know, this SCO, you know, the Shanghai Cooperation Operation Organization, but it's kind of the Central Asian nations don't like Putin anymore. They really starting to get annoyed by this war.
This is also weird that the LAX had this major power outage, right?
I don't know what that is.
I just remember every time I think about this, I think about John C. Lilly at LAX and how he was landing, and right before he landed, the plane hit the LAX tower, not his tower plane, but another plane did. So they couldn't land properly, and they had to circle for like 20 minutes. It was like super sketch. And it was right before this, like in the air, he was doing PCP and he was talking to Echo, and SSI tapped in. And SSI is this like evil, it's the villain from the Echo the Dolphin video game, long story short. But it tells him, hey, solid state intelligence is going to start messing with you in the world, and we're going to attack, to stop you from doing what you're doing. And then they destroyed the terminals and power relays and everything for the LAX. So something very strange to me about LAX. Always has been a weird airport. I've had some weird experiences there.
I think it's a UFO landing pad because that restaurant, it's like a UFO restaurant. It's really cool. I ate there. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I hope it's not. I mean, because the TSA was not operational, they let everybody in. I mean, somebody can carry a suitcase nuke for all we know. I don't think.
Yeah. But, I don't know. TSA don't do anything really important except for like give me hugs. I give them hugs every time because I'm like, hey, let's do a pat down. I don't want to go with the X-ray.
I think more people should read about modern monetary theory and what being monetarily sovereign means and what the debt really is. Because to me, it seems like a big scare tactic to constantly be like, oh, we're dead. It's we owe 33 trillion. Now it's like, who do we owe it to? Oh, we owe it to China. A lot of that is all bullshit scare tactic politics.
Let me rephrase what I said because I didn't mean what I said. I want to say something actually different because I've met a lot of TSAs, and actually I like all the TSAs I've ever met, except for maybe one time where I got a microphone stolen in 2003, and that was a very strange specific circumstance. And also Tim Pool used to be a TSA, so take that how you will. But the thing is, if they turn off all these machines, then this might be the one moment where TSAs can do their real job, because I've noticed this where all around the world they're looking for, maybe they're looking for drugs, or maybe they're looking for fruit. In Denmark, they wanted to make sure I didn't bring an apple with me or something like that. Or maybe they're making sure that when I left France, I wasn't allowed to bring my 4 ounces of organic avocado or hazelnut oil or almond oil or something that my friend's mother pressed or something like that. And that's clearly not they know it's not evil. But in this circumstance where everything's off and they have to really make sure for a second, then their instincts go into overdrive. And then they're like, oh, that guy, obviously we're going to check him. That person, that lady right there.
Are you kidding me, bro? Tim Pool is TSA? Oh, my God, dude. That explains so much.
At least he's baggage, but he was something like it.
Okay, well, that's a big difference, dude. I assumed he was baggage too, man. If you tell me he was a TSA, I have an opposite feeling about TSA to you. I have a hard time containing my temper. It makes me sad.
I might have misspoke. I don't want to get in trouble. I'll double check that in case anyone gets upset.
I do not like TSA, former TSA, current TSA, unless they really can explain to me how they realize
they're all nice to me.
Tool of tyranny while they're in the TSA.
I mean, granted, every TSA I deal with, I'm like, I'm gonna get the opt out, and I'm quiet about it.
That's the kind of person. If they got an order to kill you, they just do it. They'd be like, "Oh, orders came down. Kill Andreas." Yeah,
that's true.
It's true.
People are afraid of AI.
I don't know. Hopefully, some TSA watch the show. If you do, we love you. I do anyway.
How easy is it to program humans to do terrible things, man? It's crazy.
CIA celebrates Black History Month. I think that sums it up.
Yeah, I don't want to be too controversial about that.
That's what's on the menu.
Rolls-Royce early nuclear space reactor fission systems from Rolls-Royce. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, it's supposed to be whatever Elon Musk got in store.
I mean, that says a lot that Rolls-Royce is building space stuff. The Black Knight, right?
They build all of Boeing engines.
The Black Knight satellite. Did they discover what that was? Who knows? They say it's some heat shielding.
I mean, yeah, people got arguments. The thing is, everyone always thought it was somebody else's thing, and at first, people thought it was the British satellite. So it probably isn't. It's probably an alien or a rock. But I still like the idea of, in my mind, I associate it with British intelligence or whatever they associate with, because it might be something like close, like the cigar from the moon, the hollow Earth, hollow moon thing that we've been talking about. Some people have some interesting pictures of it, though. Now you can get such great pictures of it, and it refracts.
I haven't thought about this in a long time. Yeah, somebody. So there, I think the debunk was saying it was like a piece of heat shielding that ripped off of something.
It would be really unlikely that something that existed,
or foil, or some kind of foil, or something.
If they took photos of this thing in the 1940s and 50s, and the Nazis and the British and the Russians saw it, I don't think it came off of one of our heat shielding. If that's the case,
it's a catalytic converter,
right? Yeah,
from my car.
No, it's Mr. Fusion, right? It's part of a DeLorean door.
Mr. Hanky.
Yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else you wanted me to pull up before we close down?
This is really alarming. Okay, so now the article came out today saying there is a fungus that's spreading in southwest America, like New Mexico area. So there's you guys start watching The Last of Us? Have you? I mean, the third episode was really. I'm not homophobic.
I don't use watch series.id to watch shows, so I won't know at all.
So basically, it's based on zombies. Humans are consumed by the cordyceps fungus, which is, you probably know about these insects getting infected, and they have these crazy fungus going on their head.
Yeah,
and they're walking like zombies all the way to the treetop and then die. And spread the spores of the fungus. So they're saying now is transmittable to humans because of climate change. So that's the agenda of the game, right? The game came out, and now it's HBO original, and now this article came out saying there's another fungus. It's a different name. It's not cordyceps, and it says it can it's going to invade it goes right through the brain blood barrier, and I didn't read everything. I don't know if it's really going to cause any kind of like prion, like the mad cow disease, like prion, which is literally turn people into zombies with brain with pores, holes there, like a boot, with like a Swiss cheese.
Some crazy stuff happens, though. Yeah, we've seen some flesh-eating parasites.
Let's hope that doesn't happen in real life.
Yeah, so this might be the CDC zombie apocalypse. We don't know.
I have a theory on the CDC why they did a zombie apocalypse comic, because they pay some college students to do their PR, and they came up with something that actually got viral. So then they were like, "Oh, let's invest some money into this. Our messaging's really getting through to the people. Make a whole real comic."
It's good business.
Like Dilbert. I have like a Dilbert version of a lot of stuff like that.
You look at Walking Dead.
The first Last of Us game was one of the greatest games ever made, but the second one just became woke garbage. Mm-hmm. If you've never played it, the first Last of Us, it's one of the best game experiences.
Do you like the show so far?
No, I don't watch TV much.
Okay.
Sam Tripoli said that they went woke for broke, and it was like unbearable. I haven't seen it. I'll give it a shot.
It was very clear when I saw like people talking about. I was like, oh, okay, everything's got to go into this freaking woke agenda. We can't just.
It might be cool though. I don't know. Don't get me wrong. Like, see, I'm the kind of guy who might think a zombie movie about a dude and his gay lover might be like the perfect indie film. I'll give it a shot. Don't get me wrong.
It's not a dude. It's a dude who takes care of this little girl, and then in the second one, the little girl goes gay, and then kills the dude that took care of him or something. I don't know. I haven't played the second one, but it's clear. It's clear woke bullshit. It's like they just ruin every story. It's like how every movie, like the hardcore badass has got to be a chick now, and it's like, okay, turn it off.
Yeah. Even the actress, she said, "All right, non-binary." He's put on these weird makeup. Yeah.
What's that movie with the talking dog from the 80s or 70s? Cyberpunk dog movie.
I don't remember that one.
Utopia.
I don't remember talking dog.
Man, what is it called, man? And it looks like that.
Pixar film?
No, it's like oh man, what's that called? Somebody in the chat is going to remember the movie. I'm talking about post-apocalypse movie with the dog. Post-apocalypse dog talking movie. What is it called? The man and his dog. A boy and his dog. A boy and his dog. A boy and his dog movie. I recommend to everybody.
2024.
Oh my god, I love this movie. It's so good. And I'm gonna make sure I watch it probably later tonight. Now that I just brought it up to myself. But Boy and His Dog, 1975. Basically, the dog has got this voice like, yeah, we're gonna have to be careful because we're going into the neo-communist territory. And like, it's great. It's a great movie, but there's all these implants and future robot people and everything like that. It's I haven't seen it in a long time, but I forget what movie we're just talking about. It sounds like this is a better version of that.
Oh boy, they're all selling some kind of agenda. I mean,
oh yeah. I was talking about the Last of Us or something like that. I feel like in the late 70s they were making all of these movies that were about what it will be like after the zombies are done. And
I've seen too much zombie things in my life, man. I'm no more.
I like post-apocalypse. Post-apocalypse is better than postmodern. I think it's cool.
Well, okay. Well, after this whole pandemic we went through, right? So they've been trying so hard around this idea, say we'll put a microchip on everybody. Basically, a lot of people say, "Oh, the market reach." They don't want to buy the idea.
That's the tagline.
You put a social credit system on a little microchip, saying you're worth how much can you buy? You're rationed and this and that. But people don't like that. So, all right, let's use the pandemic as an excuse to scare the heck out. You have to be checked everywhere. You got to go to checkpoint and make sure you're safe to go into this venue. Blah 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 blah. And then they're achieving it. He was talking about what the hell happened to money, sound money. Well, there's no more sound money. It's all going to be credit based. Social credit. How much
it'll be cool in 4 or 5 years when they put Banksy. Prince, whatever, on the King Harry or William or Charles or whatever. Now, King Harry is not going to be on the money, or if he is, it's going to be on this money. But in 4 or 5 years, when we go full digital world economy, Banksy is going to be in charge of design. I wager a rupee or $1 or whatever is worth nothing. Then I'll wait till then.
I really think that Harry's going to be the king of America. You can laugh all you want. I swear to God, his book sales is like selling hotcake right now. He's a pathetic storyteller. I did raise it a few times. I know you're wrapping up. I
was gonna say King Ralph though. Also, make sure you watch King Ralph. Sorry, another tangent. God, I love that movie.
Okay, so Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, they married on May 19th. May 19th is the day King Henry VIII chopped off the head of Anne Boleyn, right? So Anne Boleyn was also they had a series in England, right? They had a black actress playing her. So I'm just I swear to God, these guys are playing black magic on everybody.
You got to see some of the Ewing talks on 19. David Ewing Jr. on the channel has been talking a lot about 19. June 19th, Juneteenth is 19. 19 is so important to their system and also to like Kaaba math, because if you break down the flower of life, there's 19 sides and 33 ellipses.
Which card is 19? The tarot card. 20th is judgment. What's 19? 19 is I forgot.
I remember being 19. That was awesome.
The sun.
The sun?
Yeah. Which also feels like being 19. Right?
That's interesting. Because, last thing I want to mention about Harry is that he is the black sun. Not saying that he married a black woman, but he, on his 33rd birthday, June, again, there's 915. And September 15th, 2017, that his 33rd birthday, that's when Cassini crashed into Saturn. And he owns the Invictus.
I think that's what I'm saying is that Ben Franklin, that's what I mean when I say he was black. If we were saying Meg's black, I don't know, but okay. Yeah.
Anyway, but I think they're staging a sun, because Sun, his brother William is the Sun King, right? He was born on summer solstice. He was forced delivered, right, from the Princess Diana. It's premature. He's preemie.
You have to be born this day for astrology. Yeah, it's crazy.
Exactly.
What the friggin' heck?
No count.
Yeah, we have plans.
Spencers. So,
all right.
So I have, Anyways, I have a feeling the two sons are going to battle it out.
Let me put the Luke Skywalker two sons up, because I think the other thing is watch the deleted scenes from the original Star Wars the way George Lucas originally planned Star Wars to be, because it's not the same movie. They were running around with capes like it was the Vietnam War, right? And it's like this American graffiti in space movie that they cut out all the scenes from. But the scenes, let's see if I can find even deleted. Hold on. Star Wars deleted scenes. Tatooine. He has like friends that are trying to join the rebellion, and he doesn't want to go to the war, and his uncle's trying to keep him from being drafted and all this other stuff like that. And he's like, if you join our secret club. Then we're getting all this stuff that you've never seen in the movie. It's the original version of Star Wars. And it shows you this idea of the Strategic Defense Initiative and the entire world being part of this military industrial complex. And each part of the world is alien because they're a different foreign nation. They're domestically alien. And I think it's pretty spot on to what was going on in the Vietnam conflict, but also the whole world, the Cambodia conflict, for instance, right, with Ewoks. Because that's why all of the Ewoks, they sampled Cambodian women to do their voices.
But the Ewoks were supposed to be Wookiees, and they had a budget problem.
Right. Yeah.
Right, yeah. So,
but that's pretty interesting in and of itself because the Wookiees are insane. You know, the idea that they're supposed to be in Santa Cruz.
Oh, you spelled Wookiees wrong.
Did I? What happened?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
Nope.
Wait, what am I doing?
It's 2 E's.
Wookie. Oh yeah.
Is that right? Oh,
is that right? Yeah, it works. That makes more sense because it's the one that's. I mean, in the sense that I believe you now that pictures are showing up. I have a Wookiee costume somewhere. I should wear that more. It's warm.
Wookiees are amazing, man. Except for the Star Wars holiday special. That was not good.
No, even the Star Wars holiday
anyone
special.
on the internet mentioned that's not good.
Dude, I love that kid. The Star Wars holiday special.
Lumpy.
Man. Dude, he's adorable. Honestly, bring it back. Bring back
the best is Harrison Ford interacting with the Wookiee. Lumpy, come with me.
There's no rule, right? Did Disney sign a contract with George Lucas that they can't put the Star Wars special on the Disney Plus? Because put it on the Disney Plus. Let me watch it again. I have it. I'm watching on YouTube later now too. Just you can't stop me.
That's just the Boba Fett cartoon.
Just probably like put an exclusive contract to save it.
Yeah, he tried really hard to destroy and buy every copy there was. Okay, so let's see. Venice Beach Dub Club Fundemic video is available here, which is pretty sweet. Check that out. Also, you can go to Instagram right here, and you can watch the Talkie Time show as well as subscribe and check out all of his other content. But his Talkie Time show is every day of the week, except for right now when he's doing Wednesday Ultra.
That's true. I have Sean Chris on tomorrow. It should be good. My store is down right now, but when it's back up, you can get that Camilla shirt if you want.
I was about to say, I love the Camilla shirt. Joe Camilla.
Yeah, I forgot to renew my domain, so it's just taking a couple of days to kick in. But,
that'd be cool.
Yeah,
but the store button's
working
right
on
there.
A new album right now for this summer. Working on a 12-track album. So, as soon as I can, I'll have pre-order information on that. But yeah, that's it. Just focused heavily on music this year more than anything else.
Dude, I hear that. I feel that. I'm doing that. I'm resonating with that. Venice Beach Dub Club. Go to Spotify and iTunes, buy his music, and also listen to it. It's pretty sweet. And Twitter. I didn't even push on the Twitter button much really quickly because there's also a Twitter. You should follow him on Twitter. He's pretty based on Twitter. He's got some pretty funny and awesome things he says all the time. Literal pics.
Yeah.
Pink Trip's YouTube is amazing. You know this already. You should definitely watch his channel. If you pay attention every once in a while, he'll do a live stream.
Yeah, if you want to catch the live streams, go to Pink Trip 2 because I'm gonna move them over there.
Oh, okay, cool. Pink Trip
2.
Do you have that as like a
It's probably hard to find.
You should make it like an added thing to your about page.
Yeah, it should be in my. If you go to channels.
Yeah. Okay, there you go.
I read about Rogan.
And follow my Instagram too and Twitter. I'm almost at 100K on Instagram, so give me a follow.
This guy,
Rogan and Alex Jones, they always leave comments, right? I mean, they've shouted me out a lot. And I've gotten I interviewed, like if you click on that one, I did an interview with
awesome.
Alex.
It's legendary.
Are you guys like good buddies now?
Yeah, I guess.
Alex Jones.
I have his number.
Alex Jones is running around all the time. So, like, just a friend of mine the other day hit me up. She's like, "I was in an airport and I saw Alex Jones. I got to shake his hand." It's like, yeah, that's kind of what it feels like. Is when you see Alex Jones, you're in the middle of running with him if you want to be, because he's running, like he's like high energy all the time. So you gotta be doing stuff.
A part 2 with Alex sometime this year. It might be remote or it might be in studio, but we should hopefully get it done. Look at that sexy. Look at that sexy dude.
He's amazing.
His head is like getting bigger and bigger.
I'm not mad at the crew. They're doing an amazing job.
I love Alex. Shout out to Alex.
I love when he melts down on the crew and then he's like, I'm really not mad at the crew. It's me, really.
MILF. Man, I love frogs. Yeah, exactly.
I love Alex Jones.
And then Synchronous. Make sure that you go to Synchronous, because all of the research that you're looking at in synchronicity, a lot of the stuff, and sorry, Eddie couldn't be there yesterday because we did a huge thing with the Kubrickology as well. But Synchronous is a great start for if you're trying to find all this data. Go to the Facebook group, and all of a sudden, boom, you can actually start to contribute as well. It's about 330, could be 333. And then but again, the Twitter, more and more all day, every day, he's pointing out stuff where you're just like, WTF.
Yeah, I'm constantly banned from. I just got out of the Twitter jail 7 day. I'm still in Facebook prison for another till the 16th of February. I'm jotting down everything that you're not supposed to say. But the group is there, so join the group. People are starting to contribute. I'm usually the one who posts the most, but now people are like getting bored because I'm absent. So yeah, join in and check out the post and throw in some ideas, connecting the dots, patterns.
It's nice to meet you, Eddie.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Dude, the world might be fake, but our friendship is real. I love you guys. Thanks for being here. I'll see you next time.
Thanks, man. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, you guys. Bye.
Thank you.